This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to a big Friday edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Great to have you with us, Andrew Paterson, Michael Remis. We got a few of our faves jumping on today to get you ready for the weekend. We will dive in to Bombers Stamps tomorrow night at McMahon Stadium with our good friend and co-host of CFL 110, Jeff Hamilton of the Winnipeg Free Press, and then his Free Press cohort, Ken Wiebe, will pop on. I'm sure Ken will have some tales of golf glory for us. We'll check in on the Jets offseason, a little bit of hockey talk, and much more. We, of course, we're now well into the NFL preseason. Had a bunch of games last night. Training camps well underway. We'll also take a trip around Lee Hacksaw Hamilton's NFL notebook. And then a little later on, close to 3 p.m., we will do our world-famous Winnipeg Sports Talk marble race and officially kick off the weekend. So make sure to stick around for that. We've got a lot to get to right off the top. For what was thought to be a pretty quiet sports night with only a couple games in the majors, the Jays being off yesterday, it ended up being one of the best nights to be in front of a TV, or a couple of them. Absolutely brilliant tennis by 18-year-old Victoria Mboko, who wins the National Bank Open against four-time Grand Slam champion Naomi Osaka, coming back from down in the first set. I mean, just the scenes in Montreal were incredible. Hell of a men's final later on last night between Ben Shelton and Carl Hatchinoff, the young American winning, I believe, for the first time at the 1,000 level. And then a Canadian Football League game that, well, as I tweeted out, we asked for fireworks and we got fireworks. A huge win for the BC Lions in overtime against the Ticats at sold-out Tim Hortons Stadium. Man, that was cool seeing SGA back there with the Larry O.B. trophy, getting a lot of love from his hometown. So we'll get to all that right off the bat, but of course the big story is Bombers. Roster and depth chart is out. Some pretty big changes, namely the return of Zach Caleros and Stanley Bryant to the starting lineup. So we'll get to all of that. Big thanks to the sponsors that make WST happen each and every day. Of course, our partners at Coolbet Canada, Princess Auto, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge and F Apparel, Rowley's Transfer, Manitoba Battery, St. Vital Dental Center, Canadian Club, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, Little Brown Jug, Assiniboia Downs, the Winnipeg Gold Eyes, who are back in action tonight. Don't forget, 7 p.m. start. Doors open at 5:30, and you better get there early if you want to get one of the 1,000 giveaway shirts, the salami social shirt that Andrew Collier showed us yesterday on the program. We'll do a Breezy Bend golf report, check on what's going on in the FedEx Cup playoffs, do a why not question of the day for Not AutoCorp, Waverly and McGillivray, and of course hear from all of you in the chat with fan feedback, which is brought to you by fansfirst.ca. See, the chat is popping right now. People are in a good mood. People are ready for Friday. And a lot of people fired up for that big win on the tennis court last night in Montreal. Let's get this thing going as we welcome everyone into the program. Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already, gang. And make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Michael Remis, what is up? How you feeling this lovely Friday?
I'm feeling good. I'm off next week, so it just hit me. This is
Are
my
you in
last
mail
one.
it in? Are you in mail it in Friday mode, knowing that you have a week off coming up?
Yeah, I am mailing it in. No, I'm putting in work here. I'm excited. So yeah, it's a lot going on here with the Bombers and the tennis. Big Blue Jays pitching matchup tonight, almost historic, with Kershaw for the Dodgers against Scherzer for the Jays, big measuring stick one. So I'm excited. Big marble race coming up. But yes, I won't be here. Excited for some time away, but I'll be paying attention to everything. We got internet where I'm going now. So it's
beautiful.
Good times.
Well, we'll cut you some slack if you're not just in the chat nonstop away. It'll be good to get away. Connor, of course, will be in with me next week, and we'll take you through a week. We'll have obviously the latest. We got a Thursday Bomber game next week, which will be fun. We can kind of talk about that throughout the week. We'll have the reaction on Friday, and we get a little bit closer to a Winnipeg Jet training camp and more. It really does seem like, though, this run the Blue Jays have been on is something that everyone's all over. So I've been meaning to try to get Johnny Junta back on the program. So maybe we'll see if he can get in. He can get in at some point next week. But listen, right off the top, Remo, and it's not very often that women's tennis would take the #1 sports story in the country and here in Winnipeg over, but that is exactly what happened last night. Vicky Mboko, 18-year-old young Canadian tennis player who started the year at 333rd in the world ranking, completes the run through the gauntlet of one of the most stacked tournaments of the year in tennis outside of the Grand Slams, beats 5 top 50 players in the process, including 4 seeded players, the #1 seed Coco Gauff, 4 different Grand Slam champions she took out, finishing up with that comeback win over Naomi Osaka, who has been one of the greatest players in the sport over the course of the past 7 to 8 years. Just an absolutely phenomenal event and a memorable victory, one of the best that Canadian tennis has ever seen.
Yeah, historic win in front of the home crowd. The 3rd Canadian in the Open era to win it. The last one was Bianca Andreescu in 2019. 2nd straight comeback win. She was a set down in the semis and gave everything at the end to come back and win that. And incredible, as you mentioned, beating 4 former Grand Slam winners. She is the 2nd youngest to beat 4 Grand Slam champions in one event after Serena Williams in the 99 U.S. Open. So, I mean, this is incredible. She's going to be ranked up to number 24. She'll be seeded at the U.S. Open. And she's only, the 3rd wild card to win a WTA 1000 title since 2009. So this is a young woman, 18 years old, doing things that we haven't seen in some time. And just the names that she beat, Osaka, Coco Gauff, I mean, beating 4 Grand Slam champions on the way to the win in Montreal with the home crowd cheering her. What a scene it was. And everyone's talking about, we talked with John Horn last week and this week about the tennis. People in our chat bringing it up. I know in the Discord people were watching it. People are coming up to me at hockey yesterday saying, "Hey, did you see?" I think it caught everyone off guard how quickly the final was after the semifinal.
Oh, absolutely.
Final. No breathing
5 p.m.
room.
on Thursday, the day after the semi.
Yeah.
I assumed it would be on today or even Saturday.
Yeah, me too. So I was, but hey, she won, and we're looking forward to seeing how she can continue in the U.S. Open coming up later this month.
You know, I was fired up to watch the match, but I also was ready for the CFL game. We had a few fun props at Coolbet that wanted to get a good front row seat for. We'll get to that in a minute. But I did make it down the street to my local and post it up. And, we're watching this tennis match, and I wasn't really paying attention to what was going on behind me. But as the match went on, more and more you realize that everybody in the bar was glued to this TV glued to the TVs and every single point. And I can never remember a scenario where a bar was completely transfixed on a Thursday night on a women's tennis match, but that is exactly what it was. I mean, it really did get a lot of people in, and I got to tell you, the potential and future of this young woman. She going into the tourney, her career earnings were $448,000. She won over $750K for winning the tournament. But man, what this means as far as her marketability and endorsements, I would say it probably is 5-10 times what she was able to do yesterday. And so young, and as great as she was on the court, Reem, I think a lot of that, sponsorship opportunity moving forward will be because of who she was as a person. And, the fight that she showed through the last couple matches, losing the first set, battling back to win, really feeling energized by the crowd, which we can't say the same thing about her opponent. We'll get to that in a minute. Was amazing. But the grace that she handled her victory, the interviews that she did afterwards was, this is a young athlete that a lot of people are going to want to be hitching their wagons to. And she came off, I think, maybe that much better because of how bad Naomi Osaka looked after the match last night. Now, listen, I don't want to get too much into Osaka just because, I do believe that she took some time off for mental health earlier and she's, had her issues. But, in the third set, she looked at times like she was going to start crying as she was serving. It was as if she just couldn't understand why everyone was cheering for her opponent, reacted terribly to it, made a bunch of unforced errors in the third set when she needed to, needed to be able to really push forward and wasn't able to do that. And then the worst look of it all, after finding out the day before and saying a bunch of nice things that Vicky Mboko said that she grew up idolizing Naomi Osaka and it was a dream of hers to play her, ended up doing about a 10-second speech afterwards and did not even congratulate the winner. Just a brutal look. And listen, I was interested to see how this would play amongst the tennis community. It hasn't played over well, but the bottom line is, regardless of how the loser behaved afterwards and the bad look on her, a star has absolutely been born in Canadian tennis. And, were it not for the like of SGA and Summer McIntosh and some of the other incredible Canadian performances this year, we would have been talking about Vicky, I think, as someone that might be in the line for the Northern Star Award. I don't think that happens this year, but considering what she's shown as an 18-year-old, don't be surprised if that happens in the future. Yeah,
very well spoken at the end. Gracious win, praising the fans. And I don't know, is Pinty's looking for a new spokesperson? Eugenie Bouchard.
Eat well, live well.
Retired this week, so we'll see if there's any opportunities that present themselves. And yeah, Naomi Osaka's speech starting with thanks, I guess, and ending with I hope you guys had a good night, forgetting to the custom of congratulating the opponent. And she did note in her post-game press conference off the court saying, I think Victoria played really well. I completely forgot to congratulate her on the court. Yeah, she did really amazing. And look, I think it's easy to slag her and we can rip on her, but as you said, I think her head was in a different space, and I don't congratulating her opponent. I think it's a custom that obviously she's certainly done in the past. I don't want to get on her.
It was almost as if she was holding it against Vicky that the crowd was so firmly behind her. Anyways, whatever. The story's Vicky Mboko, not the sulk job by Osaka afterwards. Yeah, both of them have pulled out of Cincinnati, and now Vicky's going to be seeded for the U.S. Open. So, just an awesome match last night, and something that was great. And the men's match was amazing too. Man, those guys hit. I do find that I love the women's game. It seems to be a lot more interesting just because there are so many more breaks. Every game can kind of go either way as opposed to, the men's game where it's just massive serve after massive serve and, every now and then a bit of rallies. And Leslie Mitchnick mentioning it was odd that the tournament finals were on a Thursday night and not the weekend. I actually think that's a great move by tennis. I think that this match, having it last night, or both of the finals last night, Reem, got way more attention than they would have been if it was, in the middle of a Sunday afternoon where most of these matches have traditionally been. So, anyways, great week for tennis in Canada, and a big congrats to Vicky Mboko, who was definitely the big story last night. Finished up that match, and then put all the focus on the BC Lions and the Hamilton Tiger Cats, Remis. And as we said yesterday when we were doing the Cool Bet lines, we were hoping for some fireworks last night. These teams combined for 70 points last time. Could they reach that again? Well, they did that and more, and gave us an OT classic that, unfortunately for the Ticats and the sold-out crowd in Hamilton, ended basically, when Tim White decided to go into hero mode in overtime and ended up fumbling the football in BC, all they needed to do was kick a field goal to win. Massive win for the Lions, too, to get to 4-5 as opposed to 3-6 in the midway point of the season.
Yeah, the road team winning both of these epic matchups with combining for tons of points. Nathan Rourke, 408 yards, 2 touchdowns and interception, really extending plays with his legs. And Bo Levi Mitchell got off to a really slow first half, 61 yards of offense in the first half, and they didn't have any first downs until late in the second, but Bo Levi leading 3 straight touchdown drives in the third quarter. A couple times had to settle for field goals in the fourth. Mark Leggio missed 2, but as you said, credit to BC for taking this one. They needed it. They have to keep pace with Winnipeg and Calgary and Saskatchewan. You don't want to fall behind too far. And Hamilton, I kind of wonder about them, Huss, against the upper echelons. Are they on that same tier as Saskatchewan when you're talking about the CFL standing? Saskatchewan 7-1, or is Hamilton at 6-3? Are they slightly behind Calgary and maybe on par with Winnipeg and BC? And could these teams meet again? Would it be in an East final if BC gets the crossover? Yeah, I saw John Hodge saying, wouldn't this be a great Grey Cup or something? But hey, you got two.
Whoa, John, easy on that.
That's what John Hodge was saying. So you had 2 great quarterbacks going head to head. What a great start to the week. And I think we'll see some points as well tonight in the revenge game, Edmonton versus Montreal, with Fajardo on Edmonton and McLeod Bethel Thompson on Montreal. But what a game it was last night, as you said.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, for those of you that were hanging around yesterday on the Cool Bet lines, we were kind of having some fun when Jake was on. I go, listen, let's get a prop for 700 passing yards combined in this game. And as Jake mentioned, leaned on one of the guys in the book, and they got us plus 375 on Hamilton and BC to combine for 700 passing yards. It wasn't looking good. I think they put up close to 300 in the fourth quarter alone. And at the buzzer, as Leggio tied the game to put it into overtime, it was at 699. So thank you for going into OT last night. That was a very nice win for everyone that jumped on with us. But, it will go down, Remis, I think, as one of the games of the year. Both of the games that these two teams played. So, listen, for John to say, wouldn't that be a juicy Grey Cup matchup? I understand what he was saying. Obviously, we're still hoping that the Bombers are the home team representing the West in the Grey Cup, but they've got a lot of work to do. But it was 2 quarterbacks running at an incredibly high level. I thought Bo Levi really turned it around after an underwhelming first half. But make no mistake about it, Nathan Rourke is the truth. And a 400-yard game on the road, coming back a number of times when they needed it. I was just so impressed with what Rourke was able to do last night. And the BC Lions, with that win, are now very much in the mix in the West, despite being 4-5 and under 500 at the midway point. Yeah,
I've been a Nathan Rourke believer. He's got off to a slow start, but he definitely shows it in the key clutch moments. And as you said, 408 passing yards. And how about Justin McInnes? Had a great year last year, off to a slow start, 159 receiving yards on 8 catches. And James Butler's been awesome as well, carrying the ball. So nicely done for BC. As you said, they are 4-5 in the West, just behind Winnipeg, who's playing Calgary on Saturday. And they'll look to keep pace with them. Calgary at 5-3, Saskatchewan a bit ahead. So that was a big win for BC. They're trying to keep pace, and as we're in the second half of the season now, week 10 today.
As you mentioned the standings, this is such a big game for the Bombers. And I would suggest the same thing for the Calgary Stampeders. When you look at the West right now, Calgary with 2 head-to-head wins over Winnipeg. If these teams are tied with the same record at the end of the season, regardless of what happens tomorrow, Calgary's going to get the tiebreaker. But the Bombers could actually pass Calgary in the standings with a win tomorrow and get to 5-3. Calgary would end up at 5-4. the Bombers would be a half game up, if you will, with the game in hand and one less loss. For the Bombers, if they were to lose this game, they find themselves 4-4. Calgary would be 6-3, 3 games above 500. And you'd have the BC Lions just a half game back with one more in the loss column right now. So a real high leverage game for Winnipeg tomorrow. We're going to dive into it with Hammer coming up in just a few minutes. We do have the depth chart for the game, and there are some changes, a number of them which were expected. But Remo, the saga continues, but it's taken a turn. Dylan Mitchell in the starting lineup for the first time this season after the offseason signing and not being able to crack the roster up until this point. He's going to be playing in the slot, which is interesting considering everything that we heard about this. I can't wait to see what Hammer has to say about it. But Dylan Mitchell, wearing number 13 for the Bombers, gets into the lineup for the first time, along with Stanley Bryant and Zach Collaros, who returned to the offense.
Yeah, and I think this makes Mike O'Shea's comments last week so puzzling, where he basically
That's
said...
a very nice way of putting it.
Yeah, where he said Dylan Mitchell, they don't want him to play in the slot, or he can't play in the slot. He can only play in the wide position here, where Carrick Weefall is, and they didn't want to move stuff around, so they went with the rookie, Corcoran, in the slot, even though Dylan Mitchell had played like 15 games with Edmonton. So I don't know who's making the decision that he can't, but whatever he said last week does not apply. I almost want to go and pull up that clip here because it seems so silly in retrospect. So I think it's pretty clear. Like, they had their reasons. He didn't want to say them publicly.
Yeah.
And they went with the rookie over him, which... I don't know if they're trying to insult him or a bit of a slap in the face there. And they said, you know what, we just need to put talent in. And he's had a couple great years on Edmonton. They signed him to be an impact player. And now this is the chance on an offense that only scored 7 points last week with Chris Streveler at quarterback. So a couple changes. Collaros in QB. Stanley Bryant going to be huge on the left side, and adding another weapon on offense. Because Carrick Weefall, you said this a number of times, he had a great start to the year, but we haven't really seen any of those deep plays from him. Now, as we said, Brian and Collaros have been out. So I think the offense will certainly look different. And, on the other side, Jareth Stearns, he's been pretty solid too. I wonder how much they continue to rely on him. And Nick Dempsey's just been, so you don't have to worry about him. He gets catch every game. He's got that streak. And Brady Oliveira, maybe they give him a couple more balls as well. It opens up some room. They don't have those stacked boxes that they're going to try to get away from.
Exactly. I mean, hopefully the return of Bryant and a little bit more juice in the receiving core can allow them to get Brady Oliveira established in that running game going. I mean, that certainly is the way the Bombers are going to win this. I mean, the other thing, of course, and this goes without saying, they got to figure out how to take care of the football better. I mean, the turnover differential in the 2 previous games against Calgary was pretty much exactly what you'd expect when you see a team winning by 20 plus in both games. And Mike O'Shea's talked a lot about that as well. I mean, there's execution and ball security, and both of those things have to be at the forefront for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. DT just posted this out. Dylan Mitchell makes his first appearance as a Bomber. We've, of course, have Zach Collaros and Stanley Bryant back in. Dexter Lawson, we talked about this with Ed Tate yesterday, is going to debut at corner in his first week back. And Tanner Schmeichel is on the roster for the first time this season. He'll play behind Jake Thomas at the nose tackle position. And it'll be Vaughters, Willie Jefferson on the ends, Adams in the middle. Of course, Lawson will start at corner. Trey Vival available to go in if need be, as he did last week. And this is just another note as Remis is pulling up here. 2 surprises on the injured list. Jamal Parker moves to the 1 game, which DT mentioned was a pleasant surprise based on how his injury looked in the game. And Eric Lofton goes to the 6 game, and D says unfortunate for a guy who hadn't been hurt up until this season. certainly a nice trade, if you will, to get Stanley Bryant back. But Eric Lofton's been invaluable for the club as well with the other injuries they've been dealing with. So you got Randolph at right tackle, Bryant at left tackle, and then Wallace, Kolinkowski, and Patty Neufeld in the middle of that group. I'm interested to see, and I'm looking forward to seeing another game of Retta Cramdy at free safety, actually, Remo. The one thing Michael O'Shea said last game when they made that move heading into Toronto was just what a complete player Cramdy is and how versatile he is, and I thought he showed that. I mean, the defense did have their moments. They got burned a couple times, but, it was really led by Willie J and the guys up front. With Vernon Adams back, albeit still hurting at the receiver position for Calgary, Cramdy, Bonds, and now Lawson, along with Dietrich Nichols and Evan Holm, will definitely need to have a better performance than their group did against Calgary earlier this year. But big game for the Bombers. The stakes really are high right now, considering where they are. But when you think about where this team was last year at this time, many of the vets are familiar with needing to go in and pick up wins in the middle of the season to get right back in it. Not 2-6 this year. They're in a much better situation. But you can compare this game to some of those big West Division matchups last season when they were pulling themselves out of that big hole they dug for themselves in the first part of the season.
Yeah, Retta Cramdy, one of the guys on defense who can play any position. You can put him anywhere. So good. They can figure it out. So I agree with you there. And I'm so conflicted on the defense, Huss. At times, they've looked awesome. They've looked like a defense that's Grey Cup caliber. You see Willie Jefferson, breaking through, tipping passes. But then you have a number of breakdowns where Coxey's getting back, getting wide open, putting up yards. Alford on Calgary in those games. I mean, he's putting up big touchdowns. So they got to find a way to limit the big plays. Those have burned the Bombers this year. But last week, and even though they gave up so many points, the defense came up huge when needed. And we were looking at the line. I think it started out at 5, Huss, and now I think Calgary's 4.5-point favorite. So I think the Bombers, they're not going to lose these guys 3 times this season. That's going to be tough. I think they're going to come in with some adjustments done, full health as well, key. So I think the Bombers are going to have a bit of a bounce back, and I hope they can come out with a win and keep pace there in the West.
Well, listen, I know we'll get into this with Jeff, but I thought that Willie Jefferson was borderline invisible in the first game in Calgary in the Stampede Bowl. He was the opposite of that, playing arguably his greatest game in that win over Toronto. Certainly the PFF guys with their player ratings in individual games thought so. So they got to do something to make Vernon Adams' life a little more difficult than they did earlier on this season. We'll talk about it with Hammer coming up right away. Folks, if you got a move coming up for you and your family, hit our pals up at Rolly's Transfer to help you make that move. Family owned and operated for over 60 years right here in Winnipeg, the most trusted name in the moving game. Head on over to Rollies.com. Check out their website. You can click on Request an Estimate in the top right corner. Make sure you put in the promo code WST for a special discount on moving services and moving supplies. And then let them know when and where you're moving, what needs to be moved, and the friendly staff at Rollies will turn it around quickly with a great quote to get you set up for the white glove treatment that they are famous for now into their 7th decade. For all your moving needs, lean on the gang at Rollies Transfer, the most trusted name in the moving game. Find out more, request an estimate today over at Rollies.com. I wonder if any WSTers have the famous 3 p.m. Friday appointment at St. Vital Dental Center this afternoon. Of course, Dr. Terry and his great staff, wonderful supporters of ours, and big fans of WST in the marble race. We have had a few people that have gone in, got their grill taken care of while watching the marble race on the screens in their beautiful new facility at 167 St. Anne's Road with convenient free parking right in the background. Regardless of when you go, Dr. Terry would love to take care of you and your family's dental needs, as they've been doing for generations of Winnipeggers before, with a full complement of dental services, from cleanings and checkups to things like dental implants, and handling customers from 6 months to 99 plus. For all your dental needs, make it St. Vital Dental Center. Tell them the WST boys sent you. You can make an appointment and find out more online at stvitaldental.ca. And hey, the weekend is here. You know what that means for many of you? Maybe a trip to your local Manitoba liquor marts. Hey, you're getting ready for the Bomber game tomorrow? Pick up Canadian Club, the special Blue Bomber label bottle, which is available in limited quantities at your local Manitoba liquor marts. And while you're at it, check out that 12-pack, the new Canadian Club Pack, with the ready-to-drink premixed cocktails, CC Ginger Ale, the Half and Half, and the Citrus Smash. An amazing addition to your summer weekends, all available at your local Manitoba liquor marts. And, of course, Canadian Club, the official spirit of your Winnipeg Blue Bombers. All right, let's get to the game tomorrow, and maybe last night's game as well. Jeff Hamilton of the Free Press and co-host of CFL 110. Hammer, we started off 1-0 with a nice win on the Lions. What a game that was last night. How are you?
Yeah, Huss, we did start. I was monitoring it more on my phone than anything last night, so I'm not going to be able to bring some of the insight I usually bring to CFL 110, which I will bring when I actually watch the full game. But I was monitoring it as I was indulging in Folklorama. I went to Argentina last night, and holy man, it was awesome. Like, it was I didn't realize how, let's call it, sensual tango is. I didn't I certainly have a new appreciation for it takes two to tango. It certainly takes two to tango. That's 100%. But it was with the right mood and lighting, Huss. It was quite the performance. They had imported dancers in from Argentina. So this is my first Folklorama visit, and ultimately my first Folklorama plug in quite some time. It was an awesome opportunity. So I didn't see a lot of last game, but I did follow it on my phone, and I saw it was back and forth just the way we predicted. And ultimately, yeah, the BC Lions walking away with the win when they were 3-point dogs.
I don't know if you caught that, but yesterday when Jake was on, I said, hey, see if the boys can put us up a passing prop for 700 combined passing yards between the two quarterbacks. It wasn't looking good going into the fourth quarter. I think they put together about 300. It ended up at 699 for the game. Fortunately, went to OT.
Okay, right, there you go. I was looking at that too. I noticed that by the third quarter, it was who needed to catch up. Was it Bowden? Yeah, okay. I saw one of the quarterbacks was hovering around 225, and both of them had incredibly high passing numbers. So
Rourke was incredible last night. Just quickly on the Argentina Folklorama Pavilion, where was it? And did you eat it all? I'm interested as to what the culinary options were for the Argentina Pavilion.
Yeah, so it's at the Pembina Curling Club, which happens to be the same place I was dabbling in my pickleball start. So it was a place I'm somewhat familiar with, but it was it's out in Pembina Curling Club. It's the food are I think that was really the only thing I kind of felt I knew about Argentina was the empanadas. And there's some other things. I think that's like the big one. I would definitely recommend too. There's like separate seating. So there's general admission, which is $9 or something around there. And then there's a bit more of an expensive VIP experience, which is $35, which is only, as simple math would suggest, $26 more. You get a separate parking lot. You get side door service, huh? So if you're not familiar with that, that's always a special perk. And then you get to sit up in the first two rows. So I'm telling you, where we were originally seated before I realized I wasn't showing them the pass I had bought versus where we ended up sitting, you could, you felt like you were in it.
Some good Folklorama tips from the Hammer. Did not have that on my bingo card today, but we got it done. Nathan Rourke just coming out of last night's game. I'll just say this young man. Oh, this is the tango. Look at the work by producer Remis getting that up right now.
I'm telling you right now, man, that is not they got a lot more moves than just that one. That's for sure.
Let me guess. By the end of it, you and your significant other have signed up for tango lessons? Is that going to be
Talked about it.
Talked
about it. I mentioned it. I said, you know what? Not a horrible.
I could do this. I could really get into this.
I am getting up there in age. It's not as the shoulders and arms and core are not as strong as they used to be, but I think with enough passion, anyone could do it. So we did talk about it. No confirmation, nothing like that, but certainly in the works.
Walk. I'm taking a ricochet shot here in the chat. Walk with Vince. There's no 7-Eleven style nachos or hot dogs at the Argentina venue. I wasn't expecting that, Vince.
But a lot of vamos and a lot of buenas noches or whatever. So yeah, it's awesome.
Hey, while we're talking Folklorama, I should mention the home of the original Winnipeg Pierogi Eating Championship that we did back in the warm-up in the TSN days is the Spirit of Ukraine Pavilion. I have been to that one a number of times. It is always incredible. It is on this week, and our own all-star chatter, Spency, will be part of the Ukrainian dance troupe. They are absolutely incredible, and if you're familiar with Spency and know him, I mean, what he does with his body at that size is one of the most incredible athletic things I've ever seen. So if you have the clean slate tonight, I know a bunch of the people from the chat are going to be out there. Spirit of Ukraine Pavilion, headed out. And if you're just with us right now, fill people in on what show you guys are going into so you can coordinate with a few other WSTers heading into it all. We got a big game tomorrow. I was just looking at the standings, Jeff. And I mean, I know there's the old saying, the season doesn't start until Labor Day. Well, it can be over before Labor Day. A team like the Elks tonight are in a situation like that.
Oh, yeah.
But when you look at the West and you think the fact that the Bombers are already down 2 and cannot win the season series against Calgary, the difference of being 5-3 with the win and a half game up on Calgary and in second place to being 4-4 with BC a half game back and Calgary being at 6-3 is huge. Like the result of this game is going to significantly alter the course moving forward and what the Bombers have to deal with. And listen, they certainly don't want to go 0-3 against a team in their division that's looked very good so far. For a game in early August, the stakes feel pretty high for this one.
I feel like we've been saying that now for a little bit, and I think we'll continue to say that throughout. I think you make a great point here, Huss. The way the standings are right now, it's imperative that the Winnipeg Blue Bombers win this game. But we got a long season here, right? I mean, and we keep joking on CFL 110 when the Riders are going to go on their annual 7-game losing streak, right? Like teams go, there's ebbs and flows throughout a season. But to your point, even if though you have that very important tiebreaker against the BC Lions, you don't really want to be dancing with them. And whether you don't want to be doing the tango with them, Huss, at all, right? So at this point, whether you're first place, if you're the Riders in first place, you're trying to stay there. If you're everybody else, you're trying to get there. So as you mentioned, you're going to have a really hard time with that, with Calgary obviously having a lead on you now, but also having that season series. So you're thinking about them, and you're also thinking about your opponent, as you mentioned, the BC Lions behind you and creating distance there. You're trying to win every single week, obviously. So this has just made the Wild Wild West just really interesting because of that, because of the potential of a crossover. As you mentioned, the Elks aren't really in there, but they're not technically eliminated either. They're just going to have to go on a run, which seems improbable sooner than later. As for the Bombers, I mean, yeah, this is a team that obviously feels great about last week's victory. I don't think they feel terrific. It just felt nice to stop the bleeding, get back into the win column, and be on that right side of 500. Now you're flirting with getting back there. And at this point, their aspirations are certainly on winning the West. And if that's their plan, as they tick off their list of first winning, the West, and then first getting into the playoffs, then winning the West, and then winning the Grey Cup. That pursuit of winning the West is not as easy as we've seen maybe in years past, including last year, Huss, right? Because even though there was a strong start from Sask, but they went through their lull, of course, as I mentioned, and they had a little bit more opportunity to come back, and then they ripped off wins. Here's the good news, Huss. If they do anything close to what they did last season, and I'm not saying that's a slam dunk by any stretch of the imagination, as we debate whether this team is all of a sudden better or worse than last year's team, but if they can go on a similar run, they can probably set their own destiny. And that's, I think that's still the mindset you need to have. right now, of course, Saskatchewan is in that same situation where they do actually control their destiny. But at this point, you can't lose track of that because there's such a long season. There's such an opportunity to go on a run, be the hottest team in the league. I keep bringing this up from before, Huss, but remember last season, it was like Edmonton and Hamilton were both trash. But then by this time of the year, we were talking about them starting like their big runs of the year, and all of a sudden Bombers were playing them in week 15, 16, 17 or whatever, and the focus was more on that team than the Bombers, who were quietly winning. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for anybody here. I think even if you're the BC Lions, you certainly have more urgency, but you haven't ruled out the possibility of making a climb, and I think that's got to be the mindset, whether you're in first place or fifth.
Oh, listen, I mean, that win last night for BC was massive. I mean, the difference from being 3-6 and probably needing to go 7-2 the rest of the way to assure yourself
why we both took the Lions
spot, for sure. And listen, the short week was I think impactful too. I mean, I think it did take Hamilton a little while to get going. But man, as far as just a straight up fun Canadian Football League game, that was it. And you probably wouldn't have seen this amazing scene with Shea Gilgeous-Alexander being welcomed back in the
saw some of that
yesterday.
on social media. That was
wearing
cool.
A very cool old school Ticats jersey with his number 2 on it. Interviewed by Shinetti on the tube in between the first and second quarter, feeling the love there. And I'll tell you what, as a CFL fan, great to see that place sold out. It's been a while since the Ticats have given their fans much to be excited about after those back-to-back losses in the Grey Cups to you-know-who.
Lots of excitement for Hamilton athletes in recent days, no?
You're no kidding.
So would you say that, like, I think you have in the last a few years you have what's the woman's name again? Mboko or
Vicky Mboko.
Yeah, so she won, right? She's Hamilton, isn't she?
Is she?
No, she's Montreal.
Sure.
She's Montreal, I think.
Yeah,
Montreal. She won in Montreal.
Montreal.
Sorry, I messed the whole thing up. I was trying to do a comparison I wanted to bring because I saw a lot of attention to Hamilton. So there's him. And then there's that, just giving me an excuse to bring up that legend who was drinking those beers outside that LC. Like, I'm talking about Hamilton royalty here. I'm surprised they didn't bring him down and set up his own personal mic to give that guy the props he deserves.
That dude, I can't remember
but
what his
excellent
name
night.
is.
What a cool opportunity. What a cool situation that Hamilton's in, right? I mean, that's amazing. I couldn't even imagine. Well, I could probably. I mean, there's the Jonathan Taves in Winnipeg who's won championship. Look at him, eh? Look at that. Perfect. That was making it. I was circling its way through social media again today. So that's got such lasting power here. But yeah, I thought it was an awesome moment and a special moment too. And I thought it was really cool to get people in. I think that's that cross-cultural sport thing too, right? You had people who are clear basketball fans at the football game. And I'm not saying this is necessarily a CFL thing, but I find like they're a little bit like they don't want to share other sports, right? They want you to come to their sports. There's a little bit like more of I don't want to say paranoia, but maybe a concern if you're propping up the NBA, you're propping up another sports league, that would ultimately affect like your success. And I think by melding those two, by embracing that kind of situation, I think it brought a lot of attention. It certainly brought a lot of eyeballs. And what an awesome showcase of a game. It didn't work out for Hamilton, but it still was a crazy game.
No, it certainly was. And it's funny you mentioned that. Yeah, I think a lot of teams and leagues have been really guilty on being sort of territorial, if you will, and not playing as nice. Like, it's been really cool. Like, I really felt that was the case here in Winnipeg in the first few years of the return of the Jets. But over the last 5+ years, it seems like both of the organizations, as well as the Gold Eyes and the Sea Bears, have been much more supportive of each other's. And that's the coolest. I mean, I think of a place like Kansas City where the crossover between Royals fans and Chiefs fans is massive. And, Mahomes will be out there every year in a Royals jersey throwing the first pitch, and they'll do the same thing with the Royals guys banging the drum. I mean, it's good. It kind of brings everyone together, and I mean, I think it's good for all parties involved. So,
for sure.
Anyways, I mean, SGA, what a season that he had. And listen, the Ticats are putting together a great one as well, despite the fact that Tim White wanted to be a hero in overtime and ended up fumbling the football, which led to the loss. But my takeaway, Nathan Rourke, if anyone was worried about Nathan Rourke to come back, he's very much back. And if that defense can get a bit better, BC is going to be a problem as well, regardless of what their record is moving forward. Back to the Bombers, though. We were just going over the depth chart. And Of course, Zach Collaros is in. Stanley Bryant is in. But Dylan Mitchell is in. And he's on the depth chart as the starting slot back. What are your takeaways from everything we heard for the last 6 weeks, specifically last week from Coach O'Shea, and now the fact that he's starting at slot?
Yeah, I just, I think this has been a bit of a circus. I don't put it all on the Bombers necessarily. They obviously have their reasons for not playing him. Mike O'Shea does. I mean, we talked about this before. In my opinion, it makes a lot of sense, right? People talking about a lot of rumors going around about his abilities or, the shape he was in training camp and, maybe extracurricular activities, stuff like that. But the fact is the guy showed up to Winnipeg out of shape, right? And what happened to Andrew Harris when he showed up out of shape? He was out of town within the next year? So imagine and that was a guy who was Winnipeg's son. That was a guy who delivered 2 Grey Cups. That was a guy who was a Grey Cup MVP. This is a guy who's never put on a Bombers jersey. So when he showed up to camp out of shape and not ready to go, I think that Mike took that personally, right? And wasn't going to let him forget it, right? Because there's a lot of talk, in the locker room, a lot of confusion, players wondering why he isn't playing yet, knowing that he has close to 2,000 receiving yards in this league, knowing that he has 12 touchdowns in those 3 years. What he has been able to do in Edmonton was the reason why Winnipeg signed him and brought him in over the offseason and got him, did a splashy press conference, and we wrote about him and whatever. But trust is a big thing in Winnipeg. So I think this is a big opportunity for Dylan Mitchell, right? He's had the opportunity to watch, to learn the playbook, to learn the different positions and to execute, right? Now, the benefit for, I guess it's a little bit of a double-edged sword here, Huss. He isn't going to be necessarily game shape ready in that respect, but he's not going to be banged up. He doesn't have 8 weeks of football wear and tear on his body. So, I think it's a balance there, and I think he's going to get adjusted. I think Zach's excited to have him in the lineup, and we'll see what he can do. I mean, it's not the end of a saga, and I don't even know if I'd call it a saga because it's a guy who's never played a game yet for the Bombers that had a lot of hype. So now we'll see if that hype is worth it, and we'll see if he can take whatever he's learned in the months that he's been in Winnipeg and help this offense that, whether Zach Collaros is behind center, which is obviously the case, or Chris Striverly before that, needs help. So if he can offer help, I don't think anyone will care what he did the first 8 weeks of the season.
How much can he help? I mean, I'll go out on a limb and say he'll be more impactful than Cody Case or Corcoran was in the 2 starts for the last couple of games where they were ahead of him on the depth chart. It would be something if he could actually come out and have an impactful game for the Blue Bombers. I mean, they really do need it right now, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the frustration amongst fans, the confusion probably internally is that this guy, they need the help. It's not like they're winning games and putting up big numbers on offense and you're kind of like, oh yeah, it's kind of weird he's not in. It's not only are they not putting up numbers, they got injuries, right? When Dalton Schoen came in, it was okay. Obviously, Dylan Mitchell's going to get in now, and then Cody Case gets in instead, and then Cody Case gets carted off the field, and it's like, oh, okay, well, obviously now, and it's Cochran who gets the start, right? And now it's like, so it's I think he could help. I don't think he would hurt the team, and I don't think Mike would put him in the lineup if he wasn't. Trusting him to execute, to be able to be to help this offense, right? It's not like they're down to their last receiver and he's finally in. There is other guys who could get that opportunity. So it's Dylan Mitchell's finally. We'll see what he can do with it. From what I've heard, he's a good dude. He's learned, he's learning. He wants to perform. So I don't think there's there might be. You hope there's a chip on his shoulder, not because he's angry, because he wants to get in there and get things done and show his teammates why they signed him and wanted to be part of this team. So, I think there's a lot of excitement around it. There's a little bit of confusion still, but I think we'll get a lot of our questions answered here when the Bombers take the field against Calgary this weekend. I wouldn't put, that being said, I wouldn't put he could ball out. He could do well, and Zach might feed him the ball depending on how the game goes. But I wouldn't also rule him out if he's not excellent his first game. I still do think there is some getting used to the offense and getting used to game speed when you haven't played all season.
Well, listen, I know we'll be paying attention to Dylan Mitchell, but, they need to get more out of Keurig Wheatfall, who had that great start to the season. Nick Dembski's about as reliable as they come. They'll want to get the ball into his hands, and in particular, they'll want to establish a run game that wasn't really there that much in those first 2 games against Calgary to open up more of the passing game. But To me, this is a huge game for Zach Collaros, Jeff. In that Zach, I mean, just look at the numbers. Ed rolled it out yesterday. 7 TDs, 8 picks, I believe is the number right now in the season. And especially in the Calgary games, did not look close to the Zach Collaros that has operated at a championship level for the last sort of 5 seasons. And when you think about the previous results against this team, everything that we laid out about the importance of this one, first and foremost, got to take care of the football. Cannot be turning it over the way that he had in those previous games. But for people that have been maybe concerned about where Zach is right now, no better time than tomorrow night in Calgary to make a statement that rumors of his demise have been exaggerated and to come out with an all-star performance that we know he's capable of.
Yeah, I mean, it's just life of being a quarterback, right? You get paid the most money, you have the most attention, you affect the game more than anybody else on the field because you touch the ball more than anybody else on the field. So you're going to get the negative attention when your team's not doing well, and you're going to get the positive attention when your team is. And we've seen that with Zach. I think you bring up a really great point here, Huss, because when you look at Zach, you know, when he's playing the best football, and I know Zach likes to chuck the ball. I think Zach would like to have 300 plus passing yards every game, believes he probably could. But when you actually look at the Bombers during their most effective times as an offense, he's putting up, not saying like low numbers, but he's putting up like between 250 to 270 passing yards a game because they've established the run game. Right? By establishing the run game opens up some of those holes, and then they take their shots. When the Bombers are forced to play catch up and forced to toss the ball, like we saw in the Grey Cup last year, like we've seen a few times this season, certainly, they're not that good. Like they're not that good, and like it's like other teams understand what they're trying to do when they go deep, and whether it's they don't have that receiver who's going up and getting the ball. You know, obviously you'd like Kenny Lawler now, and hindsight is always 20/20. But you know, they don't really. And Carrick Wheatfall, to your point, Huss, was that guy. Doesn't seem to be that guy right now, and possibly anymore. I'm not ruling him out ever getting back there, but you know, something's got to give here, right? You're given that spotlight. It also hurts too that until this game here coming up, they hadn't had their left tackle, Hall of Fame, future Hall of Famer left tackle, and Stanley Bryant. They've had some injuries on the O-line, so they've had to switch up players. That's a lot of chemistry to rework and footwork to go over and execute and whatnot, and that's going to affect the running game, right? We'll tell you this right now: Jason Hogan doesn't not want to run the ball, right? I mean, he was the guy. he was Brady's best friend last year, and probably
well, he didn't want to run it with 3 minutes left in the game last Friday.
Exactly. Yeah, no, we can get, hopefully we can move on past that one, but that one's going to linger for a while. But that being said, you need to establish that. So there's issues. These sound like excuses, and they're not excuses. It doesn't matter. You need to win week in and week out. And previous years, they were able to kind of deal with some of these hiccups, whether they be minor or greater. This time they don't. And it seemed this year they seem to can't. And whether it's an issue with the O-line and injuries, whether it's not being able to establish a run game, whether it's being down in games early and forcing to throw the ball, the Bombers have offenses kind of has become a little bit predictable, right? They've been so good for so long that, over the last couple seasons, for sure, teams are kind of catching on. And so I don't know if that's exactly the science here or not, but what I would suggest is that they don't have the weapons they used to have, and they're getting older. We're seeing an older team. We're seeing guys, look like they're in their mid to late 30s. And that was eventually going to happen. The Bombers have been to 5 straight Grey Cups. Eventually things were going to fall off. Are they going to fall off by the end of this season? I guess we'll have to wait and see. Personally, I wouldn't rule them out after what we saw last season. But when you look at what other teams are doing, when you look at the Rough Riders making that progress from the season before, when you look at the Stampeders going from the basement to competing for the West, the competition's seems to be a lot harder. So when you factor all those things in, it's not all that surprising. I just think when the Bombers are playing their best, they're controlling the game. And while they are on the right side of 500 so far this season, Huss, I don't think they've really done much controlling of any game they've been in. So that's really been the tough part for them. The tough part for their play calls is that when you don't control the game, when you don't have an O-line that's moving the ball, up the field and an established run game that's opening up your deep shots, you're kind of seeing what the Bombers are doing right now. They're pretty much mediocre, much like we used to see from their opponents for many years.
By the way, shout out to everybody in the chat. You actually were right. Vicky Mboko from Burlington, which is basically just outside of the Hammer.
Okay, when someone said home, I know she was it because the tournament was in Montreal, so I kind of attached that. So it's pretty close, It's awesome.
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly like for a night for the Hammer, and listen, that's an area of the country that's really hurting right now. I mean, it is Steel Town. I mean, our Pittsburgh, and we all know what's happening with steel and with tariffs and everything like that. So
I stopped telling people Hamilton like the city and started telling people Hamilton like the musical when I check into hotels.
You mentioned about just where this team's at. Listen, I think Zach has to have a big game. And I will say the same thing on the other side. Speaking, I mean, a guy that turned back the clock last week was Willie Jefferson with one of his most impactful games as a Bomber, and that is saying something. He was absolutely brilliant, and that was something that was really missing for the most part, especially in the game in Calgary earlier this season, Jeff. And, you know, when you look at the changes in the secondary, I would suggest that the Bomber defensive line has the opportunity to be a real difference maker, one that they weren't earlier this year when Vernon Adams was having all the time he needed to complete second and long after second and long.
Yeah, well, I mean, their bookends are elder statesmen, right? Like you have Vaughters, James Vaughters, and you have Willie Jefferson, right? Two great players in this league and are definitely recognizable guys. Certainly Willie. Vaughters has NFL experience, but they're getting up there, right? And so to see those kind of performances from Willie, it's not surprising by any means. I mean, look at him in the Grey Cup last year. He was probably the best player on the field for both teams, right? So he has that flashes. There's been a lot of talk about Willie's production, right? Even in that game, 0 sacks but 4 pass knockdowns, right? 4 like notable pass knockdowns where you don't get the yards, but you lose the down just as well. You know, I think for Willie, he still brings it every week. He still obviously has, he wants to be the best on the field. He's a guy who's focused. He's a leader on the defense. And what I was getting to before with the schematic part is that if you're rushing 3 constantly, you're not going to get a lot of sacks, right? I mean, the Bombers have kind of blended that a little bit differently this year, not so differently, but you're not going to see a lot of sacks necessarily. I think for them, the Bombers, when it comes to the D-line, Huss, I think there needs to be a bigger focus on the interior. You know, like this is you've been kind of playing with fire here for the last couple of years. And like, I got a lot of respect for Jake Thomas, but, you know, he's getting up there in age and those are the holes and teams are running against Winnipeg. So I do think that, and that's not just, that's not to pick on Jake. Jake's been a terrific player for this team for a very long time and has certainly defied father time for a while. So I do think though that line could, has to be dictating the pressure here, right? I mean, if you're, this idea of dropping back 9 players and being versatile in all the positions and being able to cover, like, yeah, that's great. But when it breaks down, man, does it break down? And when you don't have that communication and unity that even you had last season, and I'd argue talent, all right, Tyrell Ford, BA, who, I'm not suggesting that moving on from him was the wrong move, but you had that leadership and communication throughout, and that really led to limiting quarterbacks and coming up with turnovers and whatnot. They're not getting that in their secondary, as you see with changes to starters in recent weeks and including this next game. So when you have those moving pieces like we see with regardless if it's offense or defense, you're going to have growing pains. And when one area isn't working or covering, and your defense is built on dropping 9 and covering in those spaces, and you're not getting that attention, speed on the quarterback. It's not about sacks. It's going to open up things big time, and quarterbacks are going to have big nights against your defense.
Hammer, great stuff. I'll be looking forward to keeping tabs on your tango lessons, and I hope you have a great weekend. We will be back on Tuesday for another edition of CFL 110. By the way, if you want to ride with myself and Jeff, our CFL 110 weekly boosted parlays up in the combo cards at CoolBet. The Elks line's actually dropped to 1.5. We've got Edmonton plus 3.5, Argos minus 3.5, and the Bombers plus 5.5. It's boosted from 442 to plus 506. You can check that in the combo cards. Hammer, you have a great one, man, and we'll talk to you on Tuesday as we get ready for a Thursday game here in the Peg with the Bombers and the Ottawa Redblacks. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, thanks so much, buddy. Have a great one and enjoy Kenny. What a super Friday it has for you guys. Nice. Listen, right on.
This is big. We're packing out all the All-Stars. I mean, Hacksaw, Ken, Hammer. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that.
Holy
of course,
smokes.
Marbles as well.
Hopefully viewers have some energy for later tonight. Never mind.
Not
doing anything at work anyways right now. Have a great weekend, everybody. Take care.
All right, there's Jeff Hamilton at Jeff K. Hamilton. And again, if you haven't checked out CFL 110, Hammer and I each and every Tuesday, albeit with the long weekend, we did it Wednesday this week, fire out the top stories in the Canadian Football League and always make early week picks against the spread with our friends over at Coolbet. Princess Auto Stadium next Thursday. Bombers, Red Blacks looking for a 10th straight sellout. It's going to be the place to be. Hopefully the Bombers can continue their momentum after that wild win last week to break the losing streak at Princess Auto Stadium. Princess Auto, of course, is the place where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. So pop by and see them. Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, a location out in Westman and Brandon as well. And of course, you can always shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. Manitoba Batteries got you ready for the weekend, gang. If you are about to hit the road camping, you're going to get on a boat, maybe some ATVing, you got to make sure that you're juiced up and ready to power through the weekend and the rest of the summer. And of course, Manitoba Battery has got you covered. It's time to wake up and stop paying more at the big box stores and get the best in customer service and the lowest prices in town, period, at Manitoba Battery, saving you up to $60 a battery as opposed to the Costco's of the world. Pop by and see them, Logan Avenue or Dovercourt Drive, or they'll deliver the batteries to you for free with any purchase over $60 anywhere inside the perimeter. It's just that easy. For all your battery needs, shop local, save money. Manitoba Battery. You can order online right now at manitobabattery.com. And hey, as we get ready for fall, still a few weddings coming up this summer. This is a great time to get down and up your menswear game as we look ahead to the turn of the seasons. Not that we want to focus on that at all. F Apparel's got the best in custom men's clothing, suits just starting at over $400. Chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles. The best selection of menswear accessories in town. And of course, if you are getting married or in a wedding party, make sure to talk to the guys at F about a special discount for the wedding party when you're getting your suits for the big day at F Apparel. They're waiting for you down 190 Smith Street. And of course, you can check them out and make an appointment to come in for a fitting online at F. That's EPHapparel.com. All right. Suited up in his Tamarack hoodie. Probably, it's about minus 150. He's already played 18 today. Let's welcome in Ken Wiebe for a quick timeout from the Manitoba Golf Tour to join us today on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Have you already played today?
No golf today, Huss.
Really?
Yeah. No,
I guess it wasn't that nice this morning. Were you rained out, or you just hadn't
rain
planned
out?
it?
No, work day, Huss. Mike and I were working on pounding out the monthly mailbag here. I think we're up to 15 questions and close to 4,000 words here between the two of us. So full work day, but it was a profitable week for the tour. Enjoyable. I know you played Granite recently. We got out to Granite this week also. Flying also, and snuck in around at Bell Acres also too, Huss. So it was a fun week on the full tour.
Hey, I didn't talk about this too much when I came back because I was off Tuesday, but we played Granite, which was amazing. I mean, one of the true jewels of the entire province. I had never played Pinawa before last weekend.
Well done.
What a track. And I'll tell you what, if you can get out there on a Saturday during the summer, the combination of the course and the craziness in the tubes going down the river, one of the coolest environments I've had. The course, amazing on its own. But there was a lot of people, a couple of bachelorette parties having some fun. It was an incredible combination of the wildness of August long weekend with the beautiful track at the same time. What a great golf course.
Yeah, it's two really great tracks around that area, Huss. Both, Pinawa and Lactabani there with the two tracks. And yeah, I mean, it's a great test, right? I mean, that's the beauty of it. And for people who don't know, I mean, the two, I can't remember what hole it's on, but you can see the tubing kind of from one of the tee boxes, right? So it's a bit of a classic background.
Well,
something you don't see very often.
We were talking to a bunch of the people in the thing. We kind of like, hey, what's going on? Hope no one's having any beers out there. It was a really, really cool thing. And now the tubing's also on my list because that looked almost as fun as we were having on the golf course, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, the IG stories were flowing, I'm sure, yes.
Let me ask you this, Ken. I mean, you just said you're doing the mailbag right now. I mean, most of the business is done.
Yeah.
Well, like, what sort of questions are you getting from people right now? In the middle of the dead of the hockey calendar, when there's not much going on here or around the league.
Yeah, Huss, it's funny, the fact that there were still close to 20 plus questions to sort of sift through, even though most of the business has been done, sort of goes back to the classic passion that pays the bills territory when it comes to the NHL in our market. Cool variety pack. I mean, where do people fit in? Who's replacing whom? Always chatter about the prospects and, World Junior options and maybe who's in the mix and, what rookie's going to play the most? Where are things at with Kyle Connor?
How many did you get of what the hell's happening on the blue line with 9 guys signed and Elias in the mix as well? A couple, I'm sure.
We got that one last month, so we're going to have to wait until training camp starts or until there's some movement either on the trade or waiver front or however it shakes down before we really get anything more into what we've already discussed kind of at length here in terms of where the pairings set and maybe who's the odd player out and things of that nature. But yeah, I mean, there's lots of folks, their minds have not stopped wandering in the summertime, Huss, that's for sure. And it's good. It's fun. It's fun to tackle. We're trying to always piece together depth charts and everything else. But again, it's the speculation season is in full force here until we get some actual line rushes at training camp to sort of start looking for the breadcrumbs and the blues clues.
The chat is really enjoying this conversation, and T. Will. In a roundabout way, saying we should have played Granite on Saturday and Pinawa on Sunday, and I will just leave it at that. You can see it right there. Oh, holy smokes. Let's talk about a guy we haven't talked a ton about, Ken, when it comes to next season. And to me, he's in some ways sort of a mystery, and it's Gustav Nyquist. I mean, a really quiet season last year, traded to Minnesota, coming off of a career year the year before. It certainly looks like, based on everything that we've talked about, that he'll probably have an opportunity to start in the top 6 on that second line. What, in your opinion, what do the Jets need to get from Gustav Nyquist this year to make this an effective, worthwhile signing that will help the team in the absence of Nikolai Ehlers, who we know is not really replaceable by one player just showing up in town as a free agent?
Yeah, it's super interesting. And Nyquist is a guy the organization will be familiar with back to his time with the Grand Rapids Griffins when he was coming up with the Detroit Red Wings. So, with Grand Rapids being in the Moose division for so long, I think they would have a pretty good baseline on where he's come from, even as a, up and coming pro to where he's at now. Even just doing some of the projections, of course, I think that Nyquist will start there. Obviously, Iafallo's a guy that could play in the top 6 if you need him there. Nino Niederreiter as well. Who knows about Brad Lambert, how strong a camp he has in terms of where those guys fit and slot in the middle 6. And I think Morgan Barron, as we talked about, I think last week, Huss, I see him playing a bigger role this year, whether it's at center or on the wing with Adam Lowry. So when it comes to Nyquist specifically, colleague Mike McIntyre did speak with Gustav, I think last month, maybe for a story that he worked on after the signing. So he's not a guy that I remember talking too much, but was speaking with Jesse Pierce out in Minnesota there, our pal there. She, thought he was a very good person to deal with. Obviously, things didn't go as smoothly in round 2 as a deadline pickup as it did, previously for him with the Wild. But, very high character person. And from reading Mike's story, he's an interesting fella. Been an interesting career for him. But I do think that being around guys like Perfetti and Taves and, wherever he slots in, could be Nemesnikov with him at some point also. I do see his skill set being something that can be, lead him to being back to being a productive player. Now, I don't think he's a 75-point player. Again, is it 50 plus? We'll see. But I definitely see him being a guy that can be in the, 45 to 55 range if he gets some, second power play time and plays some top 6 minutes with someone like Perfetti. And, Taves is a guy who's a great puck distributor. So is Perfetti. He's a guy that has not had trouble finishing previously. But again, I understand. I've talked to people around Minnesota. He did not fit in super well there. His confidence seemed to be shattered after not playing a ton or as much with the Predators, losing his power play time, not playing on the top unit, things of that nature. But this is a guy that's been around a long time, and he you see what's on the back of the hockey card, Huss, right? That's kind of the old school thing. We often talk about it in baseball. Players, yes, there's often drop off in your 30s, sure. But this is a guy who's been a highly productive player for a very long time, super smart. And again, if his skating is at a level that allows him to be at his best, then I still see him being a guy that can play, steady middle 6 minutes and can play on that second line and be a guy that, chips in a good chunk of the Ehlers production that has been lost. But again, that's up to him to show. But I would say too, from watching that year in Nashville where he flourished, he's smart enough to play with a guy like Philip Forsberg and Ryan O'Reilly. To me, that would tell you that he could still be a pretty productive player. And that's what I think that the Jets scouts saw. And again, the biggest thing is going to be with the skating. He's a super, smart guy, gets to the right spots, but as long as his feet are moving and he's getting himself in a position where he can excel, I do think that he can be a productive player for sure.
Rob Mahoney popped in the chat, just wondering any scuttlebutt you're hearing on KFC or Lowry deals. There was big news with Lowry today,
yeah,
but
he did
it was a new deal, but it was a different deal, not one with the hockey club. Congrats again to the captain.
Yeah, him and Laura, good big news there, right? Or Lauren, right? So yeah, big news for the Lowrys and his new partner for life. Nothing really new on the contract front there, Huss, in terms of what I'm hearing anyway. So again, I don't see that as being an impediment, but I mean, we know that we expect these things to get done at some point here. And again, when that happens, we'll have to see, but sort of status quo for now. I think it's just something that are probably both sides have probably exchanged numbers to a degree, but I think you'll probably get some more digging in when it comes to a little bit closer to training camp time and see where things go from there.
Brad Lambert and Nikita Chibrikov have already done their time or done time with the Moose. Not necessarily means that they're finished with that. Probably not, to be perfectly honest. But, they're in a certain level of prospect in that they've been with the organization. They've been pros. They've both played in the National Hockey League. After those guys, Ken, what prospect are you most looking forward to seeing at training camp? And is there one that you think has maybe positioned themselves with a strong camp to maybe make it the toughest decision for Jets management?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be Jagger, right, Huss? I mean, but again, I think that we're both in the same situation here, or belief that Jagger's probably going to be best served by getting himself settled at the pro level, getting first line minutes or first power play minutes with the Manitoba Moose here. So he's the guy who can make it the most interesting given his skating ability and skill set and finishing ability, but also because he has that defensive awareness that is required to play in a situation or a position that may or may not be available to him based on how training camp goes, injuries, whatever else kind of comes his way. But Jagger's a guy that I'm certainly very interested in seeing where he fits and what kind of opportunities he gets coming out of camp. Because too, I mean, what we know is that he relished his time being around Sidney Crosby at his, first NHL training camp. I think he spent, we saw it with our own eyes, the amount of time he spent afterwards with Mark Scheifele at the end of practices during training camp. So, and then now you're adding Jonathan Toews to that mix. So I think that Jagger is a guy who, he's a very studious player by nature, incredibly hard worker, and he's the kind of guy that I think is going to continue to flourish. But again, this is not the apples to apples, but based on the history of what happened with Nick Patan, I think that having Jagger start with the Moose and, not maybe blurring the lines in terms of where he stands, is probably the best path or course of action for him, even though that Lowry's not going to be there. Jagger can also play on the wing. So, those three players are competing, and it may not even be for one spot. I mean, we'll have to see what's available. Maybe there is one spot available with Lowry not starting the season, in action and needing, whether it's 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks, we'll see what happens there. But anyways, I think that Jagger's a guy that I'm curious about. And Huss, I mean, I also, based on what we saw last year, I think Kevin He is the guy that he was the surprise of training camp last year in terms of his ability to make an impact and being noticeable in those preseason games that he got. So because of that disruptive nature now combined with his offensive explosion that he had in the OHL this year, Again, I'm not saying he's going to make the team, but I do think that he's the kind of guy that will catch Scott Arniel's attention. And we've talked about this a ton, Huss. I think Lambert is best situated to jump into the NHL lineup immediately in October because of his skating ability and offensive gifts. But he is the kind of guy that, for a team that's lost a bunch of speed and is maybe looking for some secondary production, he's the kind of guy that, because he plays that straight line game and because he can be disruptive on the forecheck and he's physical, he might be the kind of guy that sort of warrants a little bit additional discussion around the table because of the style that he plays. Now, again, I expect him to go back and flourish for one more season in the Ontario Hockey League, but I don't think that necessarily Jagger is a sleeper because we know who he was acquired for and he's a high draft pick and all those things. I would say that Kevin, he would be in that sleeper category as someone who might give the coaching staff and management team a little bit of pause around the table if he can combine that disruptive nature with the offense he was showing when at times he was leading the OHL in scoring last year, Huss. So that's a guy to me that'll be fun to watch. The
other guy that I wanted to bring up is Kieran Walton. I mean, sure. Kieran Walton last year, he kind of came in. He was a late draft pick, was fun to talk to. He had a massive breakout season in the OHL. And when you think about a center of his size and what he's already able to do, like, I don't have any expectations that he'll be around or playing any regular season games. But I'm very, very intrigued to see what he can do, presumably getting into a preseason game or two against that level of competition.
Yeah, and totally fair, Huss. And I just think with Walton that it's a little bit more of a longer range development plan. But I do think that last year was a year where he took a big step offensively. For him to kind of level up and take those next steps when he's getting ready to play, for the Moose and make his progression, it's going to be that he needs to play a little bit more of a robust game physically and get to the harder areas. And I think he's taken some important steps on those fronts, Huss. Just saying, at 19, it's still, even at his size, it's going to be tough for him to, potentially dominate in exhibition games just because of the additional strength that will be required and the sort of, rounding of the edges with his game. But I mean, this is a skilled player who is learning to become, he's got to learn to become a power forward. And I think he's doing that. But I mean, it'll be interesting to see. You're always wondering how guys sort of make that jump from 18 to 19 and us on that same sort of vein, even though this is a player that will be playing for the Moose, not going back to junior. I think it's a massive camp for Colby Barlow. Colby Barlow, I expect him to be way more noticeable this year, Huss. Year one was almost an entire write-off for him when it came to NHL training camp because he got COVID on like day 2 of camp and missed out on the opportunity to play exhibition games. Last year he was there, but it was at a time where he was not playing his best, Huss. But I think that Barlow has sort of, pushed aside some of those negative ramifications for people who said his development had stalled, and he really was thriving down the stretch and into the playoffs after the trade in the OHL. So I think that Barlow, I'm not saying he's coming here with a chip on his shoulder, Huss, but I think he's going to put himself in a position where he's going to be more noticeable and noticeable for the right reasons when he's at training camp this year. And again, it would be very difficult for him to win a job with the Jets this year, but I think that he's going to be highly motivated to have a very strong camp. I think he spoke openly at development camp about the work he's been doing with Jake Wolf on the fitness side. So I expect Colby Barlow to be a guy that is maybe going to be turning some heads at training camp too because of his finishing ability, Husson. We talked about Ehlers earlier. I mean, Barlow's the kind of guy that if he can translate his production in the OHL to the Moose quickly, he's going to be a guy that, you're going to be thinking about in terms when it comes to call-ups and some of that offensive production down the road. It's probably not going to be next season, but down the road in the more near future than far down the road, Barlow's going to be a guy that's kind of forcing his way, sort of elbowing his way into the discussion with guys like we talked about earlier with Chibrikov. And again, I don't want to give short shrift to Chibrikov either, Huss, because, quite frankly, this is a guy who's in his very small sample size has been a very noticeable player, right? I think, 3 goals, 4 points in his 5 NHL games. So for a team that was looking for more secondary scoring, well, hello, here's a guy who has been productive in a very small window. But as I've said throughout, since the time that the injury occurred, because he lost that big chunk of the second half of development time, and because of the nature of the injury, Huss, and this is not a comparison to Ville Heinola, but because of the nature of the ankle injury, and for a guy who isn't the most fleet of foot, he's incredibly energetic and gets involved. But when your ankle is the part that's injured and you're already trying to become a better skater, it sometimes just takes a little bit longer, Huss. So for me, I just think that Chibrakov's going to need some time with the Moose and get that confidence and be playing those minutes where you're touching the puck all the time and getting your shot off and all of those things that have made him such an effective player with the Moose and with the Jets in those limited minutes. I think it's important for him to start with the Moose. Now, again, all these guys can change the narrative that you and I are having by having exceptional training camps and being better than other people that are slotted in ahead of them on the depth chart. But I'm just saying it's a little bit longer road for him. And that also applies to Solomonson, Huss, because of the time that he missed with the shoulder issue.
Hey, just on the Moose, and this is not something that we've spent a lot of time talking, because a lot of those moves happened right in the midst of, what's happening with Dylan Sandberg and Velarde and all that. But it's been very clear that there's been a organizational commitment to making sure that what happened last year doesn't happen again. I mean, I know you're talking to a lot of people. How much of a priority is it to make the Moose more competitive this year and give the young players that are going to be in that lineup an opportunity to play meaningful games down the stretch, to hopefully get playoff wins and not be mired in a team that just simply wasn't competitive enough last season, as their record indicated?
Yeah, Hassan, it's twofold, right? So Scott O'Neill talked about all the depth, and we started the show by talking about the depth on the back end, right? I mean, bringing in a guy like Cale Clegg, that's your Kyle Capobianco kind of guy. He's going to be on the first power play. He's going to be the guy that you could call up and slot him into the NHL lineup and be comfortable he can handle the minutes. But he's also kind of, he's the Dylan Coughlin of this year, let's say. Samuel Fagamo, not 100% sure how to pronounce it, but coming in from the Kings organization, this guy who scored a ton of goals in the American Hockey League, he's got NHL experience. So when you're having guys like Barlow and, Chibrikov potentially, and, you got Phil DiGiuseppe, he just helped the Abbotsford Canucks win a Calder Cup with Winnipegger Jet Wu. This guy's played a bunch of NHL minutes on the fourth line. So you got another veteran guy there, and Huss, Mason Shaw being back with the Moose, I think is important. And for Mason Shaw, I don't think anyone projected he was going to be the leading scorer of the Manitoba Moose. And now Mason Shaw doesn't have to be the leading scorer of the Manitoba Moose based on the guys that they've brought in around him. He'll still be an important player for them. I think he was their MVP, but again, you're not counting on Mason Shaw to necessarily lead the team in scoring, because you got a little bit more more offensively talented players around him as well. So I definitely think it was something that they were thinking about. But I also think that the Jets are seeing these guys as depth pieces that they've got NHL experience and they can call on them if necessary, much like they did with Dominic Toninato. Last year when he was recalled, being the captain of the Moose. He came in and wasn't just there to be the 13th forward. He came in, played on the penalty kill, and played some important minutes when those minutes were required. But the one thing that I don't necessarily, my argument with that theory is that the Jets invested last year in the Manitoba Moose also, but a lot of those players just didn't perform at the level that is required of someone who's making a pretty hefty ticket on a two-way contract, but has maybe a guarantee or kind of a big number. But and again, on that front too, I mean, Isaac Poulter, a Winnipegger, Huss, he's right in the mix with Dom DiVincentis and Thomas Milic in terms of the goaltending minutes that are going to be available. He had a couple call-ups with the Devils, didn't get into any game action. But he's a guy that's kind of around as sort of the de facto number 3 in sort of the Capo Kakinen role. But having said that, you're still going to have to be playing better than the other guys that are the incumbents there in order to sort of establish yourself in that role as the first call-up if one is necessary. And Huss, what we know about the Jets situation with Hellebuck, the workload he's going to carry, plus the Olympics, at some points you may need that number 3 guy to come up, even to serve as a backup or whatever else. So I think those are things that they made a strong commitment, and I think they want a little bit more skill around those guys. But again, I don't think this is a new development. I mean, there were a bunch of young guys coming in, and they had some veteran experience last year, but those guys just didn't get it going offensively, and maybe the pieces it just didn't fit the way they anticipated it would. And even too, I mean, like Axel Jonsson-Fjällby is a guy that we saw when he was up with the Jets. You noticed him, but he just didn't have a great year with the Moose last year. So I think they've got a little bit more established skill on those fronts, and that should lead to some better results on the ice as well.
Wiebe, I can't have you on the program today without getting ready for this big series against the Dodgers this week. First thoughts on their trip to Colorado against the disgrace that is the Colorado Rockies franchise, who I said earlier should be relegated to AA, not AAA. But man, Scherzer, Kershaw, Jays want to measure themselves against the team in the majors. It starts tonight at Chavez Ravine.
Yeah, no doubt. I think it'll be a fantastic series here. And yeah, I mean, Scherzer is a guy who's super interesting, Huss. We've talked about him for the last couple of weeks here. I mean, Max is a guy who's been just he's an absolute bulldog. He's just happened to make a couple of mistakes that have left over the middle of the plate that have been deposited into the seats. And he was much better in his last start again in terms of minimizing the damage. So I think he's in some ways, Huss, I mean, it's just spring. He's just coming out of spring training in a lot of ways in terms of his workload. But I mean, for Max, Huss, this is a guy who's basically auditioning to have a spot in the rotation for the playoffs. So, I mean, it's not something those guys would be talking about now or outwardly, but he needs to be good down the stretch in order to be, the game 1 or 2 starter for the Blue Jays. And yeah, I mean, it was important for them to get their bats going. They kind of were a little bit lethargic in that series against the Orioles. They were a little bit flat on the bases.
They got going all right.
No, I know it was quite something. But Huss, that's got, again, when I'm talking about standard, I'm not saying you got to have 40 plus runs in a 3-game series, but they were having quality at bats. They were doing the little things that were making them successful during the extensive winning streak. They were running the bases really well, going first to third, putting pressure on the opponent. Their defense was much stronger. They weren't kicking the ball around. And again, people were wondering why the Jays didn't add more bats, us, myself included. But look at the series Varsho had, and look at Alejandro Kirk being back, and now Springer's going to be around the corner here. And all of a sudden, the team the lineup looks a lot more stretched out compared to what it looked like, even in that Baltimore series, which was not that long ago. So I think it'll be a fabulous series. And again, we know that the Shohei development is always going to be attractive to Jays fans based on the flirtation in free agency, right? So I think it'll be a fun weekend to watch there. And the Dodgers, they've done all the right things, Huss, but they sort of been a little bit, 1 step forward, 2 step forward, 1 step back a little bit in the last little stretch of time here too. But I think it'll be a dynamite series. And I think one of the other important developments, Bichette's been fantastic, Huss, but Vladdy finding the power stroke is a big development for the Blue Jays. Looked like he had been pressing quite a bit to me. His plate discipline was a lot better. And when Vladdy goes to right center, that's when he's on his game, right? I mean, Barger's had such an unbelievable season here of explosion offensively, but when Vladdy's hitting to all fields, that's when he's locked in. And right now, Bichette's one of the best hitters in baseball. And I mean, Huss, it's funny to say, but like a lot of parallels between the Jets and Blue Jays when it comes to the handling of what's going to happen next with Bo Bichette. Like the Jets got both guys signed. They got Hellebuck and Scheifele signed. Right now, the Jays still only have Guerrero signed, but they didn't move Bo Bichette. And this just goes back to the debate we had for months.
Feels more like a Nick Ehlers.
Well, sure. But I mean, the Jets, for all the people saying, the Jets should have just moved Ehlers at the deadline. Well, of course you don't. If you think you're trying to win, you try to win, just like the Jays are trying to win with Bichette. And of course, he'd like more than a compensatory draft pick for Bo's services, but you're not waving the white flag with one of your own homegrown talents at the deadline when you're leading the American League. So it'll be fun to watch down the stretch for sure, Huss. It'll be great.
Wiebe, have yourself an awesome weekend. May the putts drop, and I'll look forward to seeing and talking to you next week. You have a great one, my friend.
Yeah, you as well. Have a great discussion with Hacksaw. And next week we'll be live from Clear Lake, where the Tamarack will be getting fired up on Saturday. So practice rounds will be around the corner, Huss.
You've already got the uni ready, the 1934 Tamarack hoodie looking good. Thanks for doing this, Ken, and good luck next week. I can't wait to follow your run through the draw next week, and I'm sure everyone will be waiting for that as well. Take it easy, dude.
Yeah, cheers. Have a great weekend, my friend.
All right, great stuff with Wiebe. We're going to get to a little bit more on these Jays-Dodgers series coming up with Hacksaw and a trip around NFL training camps. Of course, speaking of NFL, it is right around the corner, and that means Royal Sports getting the new NFL gear in for the upcoming season. Your number one fan headquarters with all your favorite NFL teams represented, not to mention the best selection of Winnipeg Jets merch and jerseys, Bomber gear, including many exclusives that you won't find anywhere else, and all the great stuff for summer, including soccer, softball, tennis, baseball, running, bikes, and so much more. Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. Follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Winnipeg for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. And hey, if you're looking for a great spot tonight to watch the football game and then the Jays and Dodgers from the West Coast, why not pop into your local Boston Pizza, ice cold schooners, world famous BP wings, gourmet pizzas, and the brand new summer menu available as well with the big games on all the big screens. Make it BP tonight. And if you can't make it out, you can get it hot and fresh to your door by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. Well, as Hacksaw says, it is Beer Friday. Let's get ready for the weekend with Hacksaw. But first, a big cheers to our friends at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts, and living out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
All right, let's get ready. We will have marbles opening in about 10 minutes or so, so pay attention. You don't need to do it yet and trigger Remis behind the scenes. But let's talk a little baseball and football right now with the man himself, Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. Hacksaw, I'm hearing it's a little hot around your way. How are you hanging in there?
And I'm not talking sports talk radio or a podcast conversation either. It's 109 degrees in my driveway in San Diego yesterday afternoon. Just ungodly. And this is coming from somebody who used to live in Phoenix. And I talked to friends in Phoenix. It was 116 yesterday, and they're going to top 118 today. I'm ready to relocate, go back to my cottage in the mountains. This is way too extreme even for me.
Well, Lee, listen, I know we want to get into the NFL notebook, but I got to tell you, baseball fans north of the border are fired up about the Toronto Blue Jays. They just absolutely humiliated the Rockies with a record-setting series. By the way, the Rockies should be relegated to AA. That's another story entirely. But, man, we got a big-time set coming up. 3 games at Chavez Ravine between the World Series favorite Los Angeles Dodgers and the upstart Jays, who are knocking on the door at the top of the AL.
Well, we got first and second place teams out here in the National League West, and the Dodgers and the Padres. And at one point, the Dodgers had a 9-game lead. That lead is now down to 2. And, of course, we're going to now get a close-up preview of the powers in the American League East, the Blue Jays and the Boston Red Sox. Boston's in here to play the Padres in a weekend series. Jays are at Chavez Ravine to meet the Dodgers. That's going to be fascinating. The difference in Toronto right now is just not the fact they're 20 games above 500. I think they're 68-48, and I think they've won 13 of their last 20. And it's not just the fact that Vladdy and Bo Bichette are hammering the ball. But, man, I went through their batting order. They got guys contributing that nobody expected to contribute. And that's the most amazing thing. I mean, if you ask the average baseball fan on the street corner, who is Clement, or who is Alejandro Kirk, or who's the third baseman, Barger, and then you got Lukes, and you got Varsho coming off the DL. All those guys are having really decent seasons. And now suddenly, there are guys on bases when Vladdy and Bo Bichette come out to the plate, and those guys are just hammering the balls all over the place. The other thing is you've really got trustworthy veterans starting pitching. Now, is there a Cy Young Award winner there? No, I don't think so. But right now,
Shane Bieber's on the way.
Well, you got yourself some pretty good pitching right now that's very reliable, very trustworthy as you march through the final 2 months of the season. And obviously Scherzer, as Wiebe was just talking, this is kind of like his spring training, but he looks totally healthy right now. And we'll see where Bieber is in terms of coming off this long, extended rehab session and the surgeries and all that in Cleveland. So you got yourself a really complete team. And how novel is tonight's Dodger-Jays game up in Los Angeles? The 3,000 strikeout boys, Scherzer, Kershaw. You talk about, quote, two vested veterans. This is going to be a great series. And, of course, we got the Red Sox down here, and Boston's got what a cross-section collection of really good young players, led by the guy that everybody tried to trade for last Thursday at the trade deadline, Jarren Duran. Boston doesn't have enough pitching. San Diego, of course, traded everybody, made 5 trades in 7 hours for the trade deadline. So the Padres have a brand new lineup, though the Padres starting rotation suspect. But the 6-pack in the Padre bullpen is unbelievable. So everybody out here is excited about maybe being in first place by Sunday night. If Padres can sweep the Bo Sox and the Jays can sweep the Dodgers, San Diego will be in freaking first place, and the Jays would be where the Jays are. So this great weekend.
Well, the Jays would love to help out the Padres in that effect. Just quickly on the Dodgers. I mean, listen, they're still a really short favorite to win. They've got the massive payroll. They've got all the stars on the club. And then you look at it, and, I mean, they're right there. I mean, listen, they're at the top of the division, but they only have a 2-point and 2-game lead. They're 4 games back of the Milwaukee Brewers at the top of the NL. For people that haven't been paying attention to the Dodgers, just have seen them at the top of the standings, how would you categorize their season and where they are at right now? Because I think the expectations, as much as they're in first place, are frankly higher than what they've done so far this year.
Wreckage. That's the key word of the day. Their pitching staff, just wreckage. They've had 20 pitchers on the disabled list so far this season. Think about that, Andrew. On top of that, their starters are now finally getting healthy, and we still have 50-plus games to go. I mean, we've got 6 weeks left in what's going to be a really spirited pennant chase, and for the first time in a while, the Dodgers starting rotation looks like it's almost back in place. But the flip side of that is their bullpen is just horrid. 17 blown saves, bullpen with a collective ERA of 4.25. I'll give you a prime example. Shohei Ohtani, of course, has been brought back very slowly from the elbow surgery, and now he's pitching once a week. They go into a 6-man rotation. He went out the other night, threw 4 innings, clocked at 100 miles an hour, struck out 8 guys in 4 innings, left with a lead, and the bullpen gave it up. And the start before, Tyler Glasnow, who is one of their aces, and he's had a history of injury problems. He's just back off the DL. His last start, he struck out 12 in 6 innings. They pulled him with a lead. Bullpen gave that up. So, I mean, the Dodgers right now are not a complete team, and their superstar shortstop, Mookie Betts, is hitting a career low 236, and he's got no power, and they've moved him out of the top leadoff spot. There's talk maybe they should demote him even further. He's just lost his bat swing. He's lost his bat speed. He's had a bunch of injuries, and he got sick in spring training. So he lost 20 pounds in spring training. He's just not been the same player after this really acute viral infection. So this is not the Dodger team we had all projected. There were people running up and down the streets of Southern California said, these dudes are going to win 120 games. These dudes might not even finish in first place right now because it's just not a complete team, even though the payroll is $383 million and they owe a ton of money in the luxury tax department. So it's can't wait for Friday night baseball. This is going to be great. Dodgers on a split screen against the Jays, Padres, Red Sox on the other split screen. And during commercial breaks, I'll probably go punch up one of the NFL preseason games too.
Well, speaking of the NFL preseason, we will have this Elks Alouettes game, I think, on a lot of TVs north of the border. But let's dive into the NFL Notebook, Lee. And listen, you know me, I'm a Chiefs guy. You have a rivalry with all the other teams in the AFC West. But even me, look, my heart sunk when I heard the news yesterday about Rashawn Slater. Consensus top 5 left tackle in the league. And he gets a torn patella tendon. He's out for the season. It really, you've covered this team for a long time, the Chargers. It seems like an annual rite of passage that they have devastating injuries in like the top 1 percentile of the league every single year. This one is going to be a tough one to overcome.
It really is. And, you talk about him being top rated. He was the second highest rated left tackle in the league. Out of everybody who played left tackle, he graded out. It was unbelievable. He's been like that since he got here from Northwestern 4 years ago. He just signed a massive contract extension a week ago. He is now the highest paid offensive lineman in the history of the National Football League. Signed a $114 million extension. And it was fluke. I mean, it's not that somebody rolled up on him. It's not that somebody caved in his knee. He took one step back to pass block, planted his left leg to pass block, and his knee exploded. It was just a fluke. And it's a torn patella tendon. And those are hard injuries to come back from because the doctors say you don't necessarily get all the strength back. And your legs, your push power as a left tackle, and your ability to plant and get out on the edge is so critical. And the recovery time is 10 to 12 months. This is a horrid setback for the Chargers, and they got other complications. They spent a lot of money in free agency to go get that right guard, Mekhi Becton from the Philadelphia Eagles, the Super Bowl winners, and they got him at right guard. And he hasn't practiced since the 28th of July. He's got an unspecified injury that they don't want to talk about. And he had a big history of injuries when he was with the New York Jets and even going into his one season in Philadelphia. So now they got 2 top offensive linemen. One's gone forever. The other is questionable. And they got a black hole at center. They tried to move one of their bright young guards into center, and he can't play the position. So suddenly, outside of the young right tackle, Joe Alt, who's going to flip over to left tackle, Chargers are in a world of hurt. And they don't have their top running back. Najee Harris suffered that firecracker injury to his eye, and they're not detailing it. He's not practiced. He can't do any physical exertion, and we are 3 weeks out from the start of the season. So Chargers just are not the complete team. But, yeah, you talk about your heart sank. I think the word that crossed my mind as that thing popped onto my cell phone with this alert. Oh, my God, I can't believe this happened. And Rashawn Slater is such a good guy. He's a stand-up person and leader. So tough blow.
Yeah, you're going to make it a much more difficult season for Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh's offense without Slater at the left tackle position. We got a bunch of exhibition games tonight in the National Football League. The Cleveland Browns, who started off with 4 quarterbacks on their roster going at it. Shedeur Sanders getting the start. But they added another quarterback this week in Snoop Huntley. What is going on in Cleveland with the quarterbacks, Lee?
It's that old favorite phrase. If you got 2 quarterbacks, you probably don't have a starter. They got 5. They got 5 in camp, and they don't have a starter right now. The big issue is they've got a bunch of guys nicked up. Joe Flacco has to be the starter come opening day, even at age 42, with 200,000 miles on him, because he's a survivor and he knows the offense. Obviously, Kenny Pickett came from Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, but he's had a hamstring problem for almost 3 weeks now. So he's a bit behind the learning curve, and if there's a health issue there. The rookie from Oregon, Dylan Gabriel, who had shown a lot of things in OTAs, hasn't played well, and now he's got a hamstring injury in camp. And so I don't know how much time he's going to get in exhibition games 2 and 3. So Shedeur Sanders, the 4th guy who took no snaps with the number 1 unit on Wednesday, took all the snaps. He's had 1 day of practice with the number 1 unit. He hasn't practiced very well when he's been with the backups. So he's going to start in his preseason game against Carolina, and we'll just see. But we've got 2 more exhibition games after this weekend. They got to sort this quarterback thing out, but it sure looks like Flacco is going to be the guy. But they got 5 guys on the roster, and only one of them is ready to play, and that one's got 42 years of experience under his belt.
Listen, while we're staying with quarterbacks, let's focus in on the young quarterbacks. You got Caleb Williams in year 2. He's seemingly had some struggles at times in camp with new coach Ben Johnson, who's thought to revolutionize this Bears offense. Cam Young, number 1 overall pick, getting it done in Tennessee. And of course, Jackson Dart questions in New York. Their first rounder, albeit, expecting Russell Wilson to be the starter. I mean, what are you hearing for some of the new crop of young QBs through training camp up until this point, Hacksaw?
Well, let's start first of all out here on the West Coast with the veteran Matthew Stafford. He just had an epidural shot in his back. He's gone to see a spine specialist twice. He's not practiced. He's going to attempt to do light toss on Saturday morning before the Rams play the Cowboys that afternoon. They think if there's no setbacks, he'll start limited practice on Monday. We're 3 weeks out, and I've had back problems. You've had back problems. Epidurals take time, and he hasn't been hit by anybody. So suddenly there's a little bit of quiet panic that's set in there with the Rams camp because Stafford is the leader. Stafford makes everything else happen on the offensive side of the football. Fast forward into the other quarterbacks. Caleb Williams was supposed to play in the Bears game this weekend. He's not. They've decided he's not ready. He is really struggling with Ben Johnson's offense under center. He's never played taking snaps under center. And people, NFL fans say, well, it's just be quarterback, drop back and throw. Well, no. Your pre-snap reads, your mechanics, your line calls, your footwork. When you drop back, you got pass rush. Can you go through your progressions? It's an entirely different feel from what he would have if he were taking a snap 7 yards back and can survey everything while it's going on. And then you get the whole mechanical flaw thing, too. So this is real work in progress. So he's not going to play this weekend, which is a bit of a surprise. Tennessee's Cam Ward, the number one pick, is going to play. And it'll be sink or swim. It's going to be a tough learning curve for him. He's not playing for the Miami Hurricanes, where he had a ton of talent around him. This is kind of a rebuild mode storyline there in Tennessee for him. We'll just have to see how he goes. He's a pretty good quarterback at the collegiate level. He didn't have a lot of firepower around him, so that's a big issue there. It's going to be intriguing to see what happens with some of these other quarterbacks. The Jets, Justin Fields, last chance saloon for him to see if he can actually be a complete quarterback. He's going to be the starter there. You mentioned the Giants. Jackson Dart's third on the depth chart. Now, granted, Russell Wilson signed. Jameis Winston's right there as the insurance policy. But I would have thought that Dart would have played or will play a lot more in this preseason, and I don't get that sense right now. So he's a little bit behind the learning curve, too, coming out of Ole Miss. But it seems to me he might well be the starting quarterback of the future. But I think he should be playing in these preseason games, sink or swim. And the last quarterback we'll throw at you. What's the strangest aspect, Hustler, about the last couple of weeks in the NFL? No conversation at all out of Pittsburgh. Nothing. No distractions, no comments, none of that going on. And that's Aaron Rodgers in Pittsburgh. And why is that happening? Excuse the phone. Why is that happening? Because it's Mike Tomlin's team. It's not Aaron Rodgers' team, and there's not going to be distractions. So that's the fascinating story with the quarterbacks.
Yeah, listen, Aaron Rodgers, the one thing that has been constant with him is that there's been so much conversation and sort of bluster around, New York and obviously the injury and then coming back last year and the way things ended. What do you expect of Aaron Rodgers this year? Because I actually have to admit, going to a team like Pittsburgh with an elite defense, I'm not expecting him to play at an MVP level, but knowing the chip on his shoulder that he brings with him, considering how poorly things went in New York, I have to admittly, I would be surprised if this isn't a legitimate bounce back season for them. And Mike Tomlin has made the playoffs and had a better than 500 record with far worse quarterbacks than Aaron Rodgers.
I think that the reality is they're not going to expose him 48 times a game to throw. Second reality, what do they do in Pittsburgh aside from drink Iron City and Rolling Rock beer? In Pittsburgh, they run the bloody football. And in Pittsburgh, they play great defense. And here, they'll ask their quarterback to make plays down the field. But he's got two tight ends now with the acquisition of Jonnu Smith to go with Pat Feuerbach, the other tight end. He's got two running backs. And, of course, they got DK Metcalf. And they got a quadre of young wide receivers with speed. But he's not going to be asked to stand back there and do this, do this, do this. They're not going to let him do it. It's going to be more ball-controlled offense. So I think there'll be less pressure on him to carry it because he's surrounded by a lot of different type things that he's probably not had before, especially with the New York Jets. So, but I'm intrigued the fact that it has been so silent in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. There's nothing coming out involving Aaron Rodgers' opinion about this, that, and the other because it's Mike Tomlin's team.
You gotta love it. Lee popped in on the podcast yesterday and joined it for some great baseball conversation. I know you're mentioning the Padres. We've got this huge Dodgers-Jays series this weekend. Tons of NFL news coming up. What else is cooking over at LeeHacksawHamilton.com?
news and notes from every NFL training camp. It takes you 5 minutes to read what I write. I write a ton for all your people in the O Canada Network. It's there. Just go to my website, leehacksawhamilton.com. You can join Hacksaw's Insiders Group, which will mean you'll get the direct emails every time we put something up on the website into your email box. And of course, we do our podcast on the YouTube channel. When you're done listening to all the great things Hustler's got to say, go to my YouTube channel, leehacksawhamilton.com, or Lee Hacksaw Hamilton on the YouTube channel. You can watch ours, and we cover everything. We kind of do sports talk the way it should be done with a lot of topics, and we start this thing with fans forum. So it's just kind of fascinating. There's a lot out there to cover, and we try to cover it a great deal.
So great stuff. Appreciate you, buddy. Have a great weekend. Enjoy that 3-game set between the Bluebirds and the Dodgers. Looking forward to it.
First pitch, 19-19 on you. Thanks, man. Talk to you next Friday.
There's Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. And again, at Hacksaw1090 on X, if you want to toss him a follow over there. All right, so we've got marbles open. It's been open for a while. Give you a couple more minutes if you're just popping in to do that. Let me throw out the why not question of the day, everybody. For not Autocorp, but Waverly and McGillivray. This is a vibe check of the chat. Confidence level on the Bombers finding a way to win tomorrow in Calgary. Give me your predictions and your thoughts on tomorrow's game right now in the chat. We'll read a few of those out and a few of those predictions coming up in fan feedback from fansfirst.ca. Do want to remind you all that Assiniboia Downs is back live racing Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. They'll continue Tuesday and Wednesday throughout the summer into the fall. And we do have Monday live racing coming up on the 25th of August as well. If you've been waiting for a Monday date, crazy Manitoba Derby on Monday. Great piece if you're interested in reading about the fallout and everything that happened. Mike McIntyre's got that in the Winnipeg Free Press. You can check out asdowns.com for more information on both live racing and everything else happening out at the track. The Fish are back tonight. Homestand beginning as we talked with Andrew Collier yesterday, and I know Will Sutton's in the chat. He's ready to go for marbles. Fish are looking ready to welcome their fans back to Blue Cross Park. Played much better since the turn of the calendar. And tonight is the Manitoba Social Night. If you missed yesterday's program, the first 1,000 fans at the game tonight are getting a special Gold Eyes shirt, a button-up shirt, yellow with Gold Eyes logos on it, and in true Manitoba Social style, a salami on the shoulder. One of the great minor league promotional ideas I've ever heard of. I know Andrew cannot wait to give these out tonight. So if you're thinking about going to the Fish game, the doors open at 5:30. I would suggest you'd need to be there around then to be one of the first 1,000 fans to get into the ballpark and get your hands on one of these. But then they've got a DJ out in Craft Beer Corner. Get some food, get a couple beers in you before first pitch at 7 o'clock. They're back at it tomorrow at 6 p.m. And then the series finale is Sunday afternoon, 1 p.m., Blue Cross Park. Get your tickets in advance so you don't have to wait in lines for pickup. Goldeyes.com for that. And, of course, you can call 982-BASE if you want a little bit more information. Let's do a check-in on the PGA Tour for our Breezy Bend Golf Report. Don't forget, everybody, Manitoba Open coming up in just 2 weeks. ManitobaOpen.com for more information on the biggest tournament of the year coming to Breezy Bend this year with the stars of PGA Tour America. We've got the media event next week, and then we'll be out there doing some live shows at the event. Cannot wait to see it, and hopefully some of you out there at Breezy Bend for it. The tour is on into the FedEx Cup playoffs. And the FedEx St. Jude Championship on right now. And Tommy Fleetwood, 6 under 64 today after his 63 round one. He's got a 4-shot lead over Colin Morikawa and yesterday's leader, Akshay Bhatia. Kurt Kitayama, Andrew Novak, and Justin Rose at 8 under. World number 1, Scotty Scheffler, 4 under today. He is 6 shots back at 7 under par. Top Canadians in the field. Nick Taylor at 32. He's 2 under par. Taylor Pendrith also 2 under par. Corey Connors 1 under. And Mac Hughes even. No cut in this event. Many of the Canadians looking to make sure they're at the threshold or above to keep on playing in the PGA Tour playoffs. All right, there we go. That is going to do it for us. Let's see what people are saying about this game today. All right, AJ says Bombers 32, Stamps 31. That would be awesome. A big offensive performance, a great game, a tight win. Let's see what the poll is saying. We've got our fan feedback brought to you by Fans First, your number one spot for buying and selling Winnipeg tickets on the resale market with no fees. What you see is what you pay every time when you're dealing with Fans First. An amazing spot for getting rid of tickets and getting something back from them if you need them. 18% are sky high. Bombers got this. 42% cautiously optimistic. 22% nervous but hopeful. And 18% not feeling great. I'd like to go with the cautiously optimistic people for the game tomorrow. All right. That is fan feedback brought to you by Fans First. By fans, for fans, no fees. Bomber games available on Fans First as well. Check out the site today at fansfirst.ca. All right. That's going to do it. Last call for marbles. Michael Remis, you can get those in. And what are your thoughts? I haven't talked to you about this Jays-Dodgers series tonight. This is going to be a beauty weekend.
Yes, very excited to stay up late to watch a little ball. We do have the CFL game, the double revenge game, MBT against Cody Fajardo. Can't wait for that. It's going to be a tough act to follow, but I think the Jays are going to give the Dodgers a run. They have the pitching, but the Dodgers kind of biding their time for the playoffs. Freddie Freeman's bat is getting hot. I think he had the wrist injury last year that's taken a while to recover. The power's coming back. Ohtani as well. I think we're going to have a great series. Real test here for the Jays. Think they'll come out on top. Will they take it? I'm not so sure. Those time zones. I mean, it's real. They're in the East, us. Going to the West, that's like 3 hours. It's tough.
We'll see how it works out tonight. I can't wait, but early game tonight. Let's get to the Coolbet lines right now over with our friends and partners at Coolbet. CFL lines tonight. Edmonton is now down to just a 1.5 point underdog. Plus 112 on the money line. The Montreal Alouettes minus 135 on the money line. I got a couple other nice props on this one. Cody Fajardo's passing yards over under 270 and a half. That game's tonight, 6:30 Winnipeg time. Tomorrow we've got the doubleheader. Ottawa Redblacks, Toronto Argonauts at BMO Field in Toronto. The Argos are 3-point favorites and minus 179 on the money line. And the Bomber line is down to 4.5. Opened at 5 or 5.5. It is 4.5 right now. Bombers plus 177 on the money line, and the Calgary Stampeders minus 222 and 4.5 point favorites. Now, Jeff and I did put together our CFL 110 parlay if you want to jump on that, and it's got a nice little boost. It's in the combo cards. We have the Elks to plus 3.5 for tonight. We've got the Argos minus 3.5 for tomorrow, and we've got the Winnipeg Blue Bombers plus 5.5. That is plus 442, boosted to plus 506, so more than 5-1. And if you rode with me yesterday on the 700 plus passing game, maybe you let it ride or a little some of it on the CFL Week 10 boost. There's a bunch of other great combos and exclusives. Lots for the Jets, or lots for the Jays, I should say. The hit parade one is fun tonight. Vlad to get a hit, Barger to get a hit, Bo to get a hit, and Shohei Ohtani to get a hit. That one's boosted to plus 336. And the old school strikeout battle, I think I'm going to get a piece of this one. Kershaw over 4.5 strikeouts, Scherzer over 5.5 strikeouts. That's got a boost just about up to 8-1 at plus 796. As far as the Jays go tonight, they are a plus 115 underdog. The Dodgers minus 135 to win. And the pitching props, you've got all sorts of different, you can basically bet the number. Basically, Scherzer's over-under is 5.5, as we mentioned before. And Kershaw's strikeouts is more like 3.5, so we need that extra one for that pop. But I can see both these guys bringing their best. Both, as Lee mentioned, the 3,000 strikeout club. You do not see that very often. I'm looking at, do we have some Shedeur Sanders props as well? Yes, Shedeur Sanders tonight. Over under 134 yards passing is his prop. They do have NFL preseason right now. Of course, you got UFC. And the Gold Eyes are a favorite tonight. They're going at it again against Lincoln, minus 133 to open up this series. Lincoln Salt Dogs, even money. You can get that in the Canadian baseball. One other thing I should mention with CoolBet. We did grab a couple of seats on the 1930 Crew Tour to Labor Day, which we're going to do through a CoolBet contest. If you missed this earlier this week, any CoolBetters who make a $10 wager in the next 2 weeks, send a screenshot of your wager, of your bet, $10 or more, and your CoolBet ID, and email it along with your info to contest@winnipegsportstalk.com. Everyone that does that will be entered in a marble race 2 weeks today, where the winner will get 2 seats on the Huss bus with yours truly and an incredible crew. They've done so much more on this, with the swag bag, with the events. Just got a message from Tara that they're going to be doing a dinner on Saturday night for everyone with autograph giveaways, prizes for each bus, swag bags, a few cocktails as well. It's going to be a heck of a time. I think they've got 4 seats remaining. Regardless, if you want to jump on those and confirm yourself in right now, go to the1930crew.com or the 1930 Crew on X or Instagram. They can get you set up, and your last chance to get on that bus will be with us 2 weeks from today. So $10 bet at CoolBet. Screen cap it. Send in your CoolBet ID to contest@winnipegsportstalk.com, and we'll look forward to sending somebody with us to the Labor Day Classic for the most fun weekend of the year coming up in Regina. And hey, if you haven't played a CoolBet before and you want to get involved, no problem. Go to CoolBet, you just sign up. You'll get a 100% bonus on your first deposit, up to $200. Throw 10 on the Bomber game or some baseball. Send it in, and hopefully we'll have you joining us for tonight. Just got a text from my pal Dom. Said Hacksaw is excited. He has me extra excited for this day's Dodgers game tonight. Love it. I am fired up about it as well. All right, again, thanks again to our pals at CoolBet. And next week, we'll have our first NFL Futures show on WST Winners. Just a heads up for those of you that always enjoy our NFL picks, segments, and shows. We're bigger and better this year with CoolBet. Myself, Jake, Pat, Connor will be producing. I'm sure he's going to get some picks in as well. Fridays throughout the season, 10 a.m. on Friday, we'll go live with the WST Winners NFL Pick Show with myself, and we'll do a couple previews looking at some of the great futures options before the season kicks off in just a few weeks. All right, I think our jobs have been done, Remis, but there is yet one more thing to do, and that is officially kick off another great summer weekend, albeit a smoky one, with the WST Marble Race. And of course, before we do the Marble Race, we need to kick things off with the one and only Tristan Rivers music. Bang out the theme, and let's get ready to drop some marbles.
Ice cream, keep going by love, right? Long the whole day, so light
right. There's been a lot of chatter in the chat today about this upcoming marble race. Remis, I saw you claim that you have found an excellent course for the festivities today.
Yeah, every time I do my track testing and make sure I'm picking a good one, there's a number of criteria that I need to look for to make sure we're going to have an exciting race. You don't want one of those ones where it's over in 2 seconds and everyone gets eliminated.
Yep.
And we don't
There's
want
a lot
that.
of research that goes into the marble races on this team behind the scenes by the maestro of the marble.
Rigorous track testing. I picked a good one. Baffling, absurd, Zenith is the name. We have 230 marbles in the race. I'll put you in, Hustler, in all capitals.
Nice, thank you. Do that. We should give one to Vicky and Boko as well, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Let's give a marble to Dylan Mitchell.
Finally.
For getting in the lineup. Maybe this is the vibe that he needs going into the game. He's in the lineup and he's in the marble race. I think that is some good karma going into tomorrow's game.
Sure. So today's August 8th, putting in the marbles, 233 marbles as I load them all in.
And by the way, I see Schnitzy very proud of his huge wrench. Yes, Schnitzy is in blue now as an admin. And a big reason for that is that Schnitzy and Connor will have the WST Bomber Report for you available Monday morning right here on the channel. So while I know you'll be waiting anxiously for us to fire it up at 1 o'clock, get a full Bomber breakdown, including your questions and feedback on the game. Make sure to follow Zach and Connor on X. They'll put out the call for questions or comments from it. And that will be live on the channel on Monday morning. Check it out if you haven't already. And shout out to Schnitzy. Had a great time sitting right in front of him at that crazy game last Friday. But we move on from the 40-31 win over the Argos and look to see if the Bombers can get one back on the Calgary Stampeders, who have been their kryptonite so far this season. All right, Remo, let's do this.
Yeah, let me just hit go here. On the baffling, absurd Zenith.
Remember what this one looks like.
Yeah, it's a good one. I tested it, so you'll be able to see all the marbles on it. Not one of those weirdo ones. Let me bring it up here. There we go.
All right, here we go. The baffling, absurd Zenith. 233 marbles. Again, shout out to our friends at Shipman Associates, the winner of today's marble race. We'll get the exclusive WST hoodie for Marbles Champions. I wish you all good luck. Let's get this weekend going and drop the marbles on WST. Big cylinder start. I don't mind this one. Going around and around. Very difficult to see who is in the lead on this one. But once we get out of this first funnel, we'll have a pretty good idea about what's going on. I want to give a shout out to our pal, Dr. Terry. I saw him mixing it up in the chat with everybody. Comet, and many of you have gone by to see Dr. Terry, taking just fun dental visits to the next level, I must say. Might be time for me to get back to see Dr. Terry. I think my cleaning is overdue. All right, here we go. Drusman and No Frills Demo, Scott, Derek Schmidt, Bailey the intern, all in the mix right now. But a ton of marbles. We'll see how things are looking as we get down. Oh, Mike G with a nice little move there. Gilbert Marion as well. No Frills Demo. Roscoe. Is that the Roscoe? Roscoe Pico train? What a situation.
I don't think so.
Maybe he hasn't come back in a new YouTube. Well, if it is that Roscoe, welcome back. It's been a while. S. Elder. Oh, Ishaboy Bruce right in the mix. Now, this is a major, very interesting obstacle here. S. Elbster. There's Donnie Boy. I'm loving this track so far, Remis. Everyone's in. All right. There's many different routes people can take here. I don't know who's going to be. It looks like S. Elder, I think, took the most favorable route and is in first place right now. But again, we're learning more about this track. It is anybody's race right now. I see Corey O, Drew Music. Hey, Bonfire Sports Winnipeg. What's up, Bomber? Of course, you're going to want to check in with Darren and Zach on Bonfire Sports after the game tomorrow night to break it all down. Grand Paw and Trevor Frost and bombing. Bonfire Sports in the mix. Going up to another, what would you call this, Remis?
A gear.
A gear. That's right. A gear interchange. Bonfire, Grand Paw, Trevor Frost. There's Mary Jane and Mike Wynn. 2 Chad favorites getting into the mix. Trevor Frost, though, with the lead, and a bit of a lead right now, although that slide has certainly churned up. Now we're going into this big orb, and the big question is who's going to get out of the orb first. It is anybody's race right now. Bonfire's in the mix. Big Daddy is in the mix. Trevor Frost, and it's Big Daddy Brent going out first. And Big Daddy Brent at the wire with the victory. Pretty sure that's a first win. Oh, I just got thrown over the top rope. That's not nice. As did Mike Lay, accountant to the Stars, who was our 4th at Pinawa last week. Had a great round with Mike. So we've got our top 10, but Big Daddy Brent, you are the winner, my man. Great stuff today. Send us an email, winnipegsportstalk@gmail.com. And we'll figure out a time for you to come by and pick up your winnings, i.e. the WST hoodie. The top 10 is Big Daddy Brent, Dave McLean in second, Grand Paw, Akemi Wells in fourth, Bozeman. Nice one, Bozeman. I guess I can't be too bad with getting knocked out and being a non-finisher when you finish 5th. Wasn't going to win that one. Puck and Hoots. 6th, Isha Boy Bruce, number 7. Smokey, 8th. Cigars for Everyone, 9th. And Animation 31 completes the top 10. Bombing with a very strong performance for Bonfire Sports Winnipeg. In at 11th, Trevor Frost, who was right there, just couldn't get out of that orb at the end. Kim in 12. Trevor Frost. Eagle Eyes, one of the top cool betters. Eagle Eyes, get your thing in for that Labor Day trip. Coach Mike, there's Tyson Ducharme. Rumors abound that it could be tarps off at Spirit of Ukraine after the dancing performance with Tyson and Spency tonight. I see there's all caps Kyle, Mike Wynn in the top 20 as well. You can just keep rolling down Remo so everyone can see what they got. I see Transcona Logan and Darren Schmidt in there. Tracy O. Mrs. Jones and Val L. Coach Keyser. Oh, there's iHeart Gaming. What do we got here? Holy Smoke Smokey. There's Alex Howe. What's up, Alex? Michael Pruden and Rob Pepper. Will Sutton. Good luck to the fish tonight, Will. Winnipeg sports fan. We got Frosty Winnipeg there. Stem. AJ's in the mix. Continue on through Todd Fertani. Just inside the top 100. Not too bad, Todd. There's Kelly Menard. We got Bailey the intern. What's up, Bailey? Hope you have a great weekend. The Gitch, Sean Lishka. He's in the mix. He finished. Kabilis. I think Kabilis will be there for the event tonight over at Spirit of Ukraine with Spency and all our friends from Ukraine. I'm sure that pavilion is crazy right now, especially with the increase in so many Ukrainians coming over here from Ukraine in the last few years. There's I got bounced. If you got a red DNF, that means you didn't make it to the end. But 161 finished today. Great race. Good track there, Remo. Excellent choice. That was a fun one.
Yeah, I don't mess around. I told you I did some pre-scouting. I found this one pretty easily today. It was a good one.
Yeah, boring Sean Monahan. Spency being a Ukrainian dancer was not on my bingo card. Listen, that was the first time I met Spency when we were doing the pierogi race, or the pierogi contest. The entertainment there, the Ukrainian dancing is phenomenal. Food's great there as well. Some cocktails or some drinks for you. Highly recommend if you haven't been out to Folklorama. You got a spot. It sounds like the WST crew is going to be heading in there for the 9:45 show tonight over at Spirit of Ukraine. But we've got the double revenge game, as Remis said. MBT, Cody Fajardo, Montreal, Edmonton to kick things off tonight. And then I am fired up for this Blue Jays-Dodgers game a little bit later on. And, of course, lots going on in and around the city, including Folklorama. And, yeah, Friday night tonight, 9:45 Spirit of Ukraine, if you can make that go and support one of our faves, Spency. That is going to do it for us. Remo, have a great week off, a very well-earned week off. I'm not sure what's more tiring, doing the show and working every day or recovering from a 6-year-old's birthday party next week, but you can figure that out over the course of the next week, where Connor and I and Andrew hold things down for a week while you enjoy some time away.
Very excited. I'll be dialed in. Bomber game on Thursday. I'll be making time for that. And our Assiniboia Downs picks. I'm not going to miss a day of horse. I'll just be sitting by the water, dreaming up horse picks and how I can catch up to you in our duel at the Downs.
Text them to me, and I'll make sure everyone knows. You have been much hotter than I have. I had the great start to the year, but you have been catching up. You had that nice triactor earlier this week. So, yes, Tuesday and Wednesday. And don't worry, we will have CFL 110. We will have that NFL Futures edition of WST Winners next week as well. Of course, Bomber Report, WST Sunday Live, the usuals, all here, on the weekend. And what will be a fun Monday show, breaking down Bombers and Calgary, Jays, Dodgers, and everything else happening around the sports world this weekend. Fun show today. Thanks again to all the sponsors that make this show happen each and every day. And I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Hopefully it won't be too smoky. Sounds like there might be some rain. We need it. But enjoy the game. It's going to be a great sports weekend, and we will see you Monday right here, 1 o'clock on the next live edition of WST. But don't forget to check out Monday morning for the WST Bomber Report for more Bomber coverage here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. For Michael Remis, I'm Andrew Paterson. Catch you Monday right here on WST. Have a good one.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.